All right. What's up, everybody? Are you ready for what may well be the official Bob Ross episode of the Covenant livestream? I am happy to be here. Unfortunately, my co-pilot, Zach, is positive for COVID, which is not terribly unexpected given that you're, in Vegas around thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Luckily for me, I tested negative last night and this morning, so maybe I've skirted out of this. Feeling okay, but just very tired from the weekend. My voice is a little shot. Been talking to people all weekend. It was amazing. Vegas premiere was top notch. I want to check in with the chat today because again, I'm rolling solo and I'm really solo. Bryce is gone. He's on vacation. Zach's gone. So if you guys can hear me in the chat, if everything looks good, sounds good, let me know and we can get started on this. What I'm looking to do today is just, I'm going to take it easy. I've got some green tea here to help, to help me recover my beautiful, beautiful dulcet voice in my nice flesh and blood mug here. So glad to have that. I'm going to be enjoying the day. I'm going to talk about my favorite thing in all of Flesh and Blood, which is limited, particularly sealed, which I got to play in the world premiere of the sealed event this coming weekend. Awesome chat. Thank you so much. Thanks for checking in there. It's good to see all of you. Really, really cool. So I love sealed. I love the limited formats in general, draft and sealed. I think, a lot of games, I can be somewhat contrarian, I would say, in how games develop and the added complexity. I think there's a kind of a beauty and a minimalism to game systems when they first come out, right? You first experience a game and like that opening set, and you fall in love with like the base mechanics of what's going on and kind of those base exchanges. I think we've all seen it if you've been in the space for a little while, how as new content is added to games, they continue to expand and that complexity continues to get higher. And sealed and limited is kind of this great release valve for a game system to always return to its roots, which is what I really dig. And I think that's why I like the format so much, that you can get back to kind of the fundamentals of the game and the basic system that you fell in love with when you first started playing, and kind of get away from like in Flesh and Blood where the constructed environment is going to expand rather indefinitely. And, there's a lot of complex interactions that start happening. You can find those really like busted deck builds, where there's like, Starvo just coming in for dominate every turn, or something like Prism, building a ton of auras and kind of controlling the game. So those things are fun in their own right. Like I'll talk about the Team Blitz a little bit and our preparation for that. But there is just something really beautiful and kind of romantic about the base game for every set kind of being revisited with sealed. And so I want to talk about that. And I think the first thing I really would like to say about Uprising and particularly about sealed is like, I think this honestly may be the best format of Flesh and Blood that I have played ever. Played Welcome to Wraith, played Arcane Rising some, not as much as WTR actually was the majority early on. And then once Crucible came out, we kind of really got more into CC and we're exploring that side of things. Played Tales Limited, of course, sealed and draft. And just the mechanics present in this set are way less confusing and complex than they were for Tales of Aria, but almost like way more satisfying in what they actually do for meaningful decision making throughout a game. I think the quell mechanic in general, like if we pull up Quelling Robe, we'll see if the robot can get a hold of that. The Quelling Robe, like this is an example of a mechanic that is present in this set, and it works so well in Limited, where you're basically putting a time limit on all of these tools that you have, and you have to decide when is the right turn to use this kind of ability to either prevent a pivot or to set yourself up for your own pivot. And so it's playing into this kind of fundamental idea that, like why Drone was banned, that there's no real permanence to your board state. There's nothing you can rely on like consistently over time. And so it's about when to spring the trap, as it were, on a lot of these cards. Even Helio's meter, which the robot will probably not be able to get. Jonathan may be able to get that manually. He's got me on the yeah, there you go. Nice. Thank you. The robot does not like meter or miter here. It does not know that word. Again, it's a destroy thing at the beginning of the end phase, but it lasts throughout the turn. So you have to decide like when is the right time to start triggering these kinds of effects. And you take that and you mix it with how each of these heroes plays into the kind of base quell mechanic that everyone has some amount of. With Dromai having the, like, if we look at young Dromai, having the ability to have a large number of these Aether Ashwings out, that the only way you can really stop, right? Imagine you have like 6 Kodachis, right, coming at you. The only way to efficiently block that is something like Quell. So you have to think, do I save this for like later when they have a lot of little dragons out? Do I need it now to like stay in the game and keep tempo? You look at Fai. So Fai has tons of 1-cost things that are coming in sealed especially. You have a lot of yellows and blues that sometimes you'll need to run. And so you got those Phoenix Flames that are coming in for 1, and you've got these 1 damage attacks, 2 damage attacks that are coming in. And if you've got a blue pitch 2 block, you start to look at it and say like, well, it's way more efficient for me to use Quell this turn. And so maybe now is the time that I should, pull 3 damage off of this Fai turn so that I can stay in the game. And then even Iyslander, right? It's a lot of times you won't pull Arcane Barrier in the set. And for Tails, I think that was really difficult. And that's why we saw Briar become so good, because of its unstoppable damage in turn with a very tempo-driven hero. And so with Iyslander, you have these 4 and 5 damage arcane attacks that are happening. And there are some cards in the set that we'll talk about that help to mitigate that. But you can rely on Quell, right? Like if it's a really significant situation, you might have 3 pieces of Quell on the board. You might pitch a blue and activate all of them to block 3 damage. And then you maybe pitch another one to activate Helios, and then all of a sudden you're blocking 4. So they give you these tools to like stop things in the moment, but then those pieces of equipment go away. So that's one really critical thing about Uprising that I think makes it so notable. I just will say, like, having played the world premiere, and we jammed a ton of sealed games at afterwards, and then we went to the old Hofbrauhaus on Sunday, and I jammed a lot of sealed games there as well, just using different decks and looking at our draft decks and whatnot. This limited environment is like an absolute home run. Compared to Tales of Aria, I think it's miles above Tales of Aria on both sealed and draft. Now, Tales draft was pretty cool, but this draft format, I think there's a lot to discover here, because you have so many different axes, not tiny axes, but like axes, like a plural of axes, that you're having to look at and evaluate. And you've got this split between the Draconic generic cards. So like if you're drafting Draconic early, you kind of stay open to Dromai and Fey. But the moment you start picking those early Draconic cards, the more you're doing that, the more you're pushing yourself off Iyslander. It's like there's a piece of that that's like, I don't know if I want to do that. And then, Iyslander is using a very exclusive card pool. There are some generics that she likes to pick up, but it's kind of hard to stay open enough to like also be able to play Iyslander and Fai and Dromai by like pick 4, pick 5, pick 6. So you kind of have to start deciding like where you're going to go. You're starting to try to read things. I think you might have to pivot later on in the draft rounds based on what you see through that first pack, and be very attentive to what's showing up, what isn't showing up, where those signals are coming from. I think there's going to be a definite strategy in draft that is like start hard picking wizard cards turn 1 and hope nobody else is doing the same. That will have a varying amount of success depending on kind of who else at the table is taking that strategy. And you might do it for 3 or 4 turns, realize, oh my gosh, there's no more wizard cards. I need to pivot now. And then ask yourself, am I pivoting, or is that person over there pivoting? There's the Draconic strategy, staying open, keeping those Draconic cards, and then picking up a strong Dromai card when you see it, a strong Fai card when you see it, and then kind of coming around pack 2, mid-pack 2 to kind of see where things have settled, what kind of cards you're getting past. And then there's always the strategy for either of these heroes to just go hard into, do I pick that dragon first pick? it's such a question mark, right? Like Dromai really likes having these big dragons. I don't think it's necessary at all. But you'll see those dragons in your pack, like the first pick. The dragons will be available if they're ever available, right? You're rarely getting past those dragons. Most of the time, like kind of we have this idea that we see a good dragon, like kind of starts putting you into Dromai territory. But then if somebody else down the table has picked a dragon and somebody else has picked a dragon and they start scooping up the illusionist cards and things aren't passing your way, you've got a dragon and you don't have enough illusionist cards to make it work. There's just so much to kind of discover about the draft format, and it's all very exciting because these heroes have interplay together that is extremely dynamic and just, I guess I'd say it's really satisfying to operate. Fai is a straight up aggro hero that also is the only fatigue hero in the pool. So I was like, what's that about? He's got the only weapon, has recurring Phoenix Flames. So technically, of all these three heroes, like Fai is the most suited to drag a game out and win at fatigue. Then you got Dromai that's kind of building this long tail board state. But you have answers to that, like Iyslander's got Singe, can start to take care of these small dragons. Dromai also needs to consistently have red cards late game so you can swing with all of your Aether Ashwings. And then you've got Iyslander sitting there like pushing out ice tokens to slow Fai down and Dromai down. And that's a very effective strategy because they're really centered around these red cards and these red strategies. But then also just unavoidable arcane damage. And so there's also the piece of like, I'm just going to do 5 and 6 arcane damage every turn, and I'm going to win unless you start blocking because the blocks here are going to be inefficient on my arcane damage. So the interplay between these three heroes, I would just say this is an absolute home run. I am so jacked to play more sealed, to jam these games. I think for the next 2 or 3 months, Zach and I will probably almost exclusively be building sealed pools and jamming these games because we have some limited events coming up. And on that note, it's worth noting, look around for your Return to Nationals right now. We've got a Return to Nationals happening here in Tulsa. It is posted on our website, and that's going to be a draft event. So like, I'm so excited. We get a Return to Nationals draft. We've got a couple other places here in the area that are doing Return to Nationals drafts as well. So this is going to be a popular format throughout Return to Nationals season. And it's important to kind of get those flex those limited muscles, especially if you haven't done it before. Like if you're like, I'm not a drafter. Draft experiences can be bad. And you can have an impression of like what draft is, kind of that carries with you until you try it again. So I would just say like definitely drafting this set would be super fun. And I really like how they put the like fancy cards in the token slots as well. Like I got this cold foil Silken Form. Here, let me top down that one. It looks so good. And I think that was in the token slot. I can't remember. But they've got it where like your Marvel dragons and stuff. And I pulled like a Marvel Phoenix Flame. And so that stuff, you don't have to like value draft it. It just, you get it, which is really nice. There's just good changes. You know what it feels like? It feels like at every turn, like the decisions that were made with this set just make total sense. Like there's a lot in Tales of Aria that you look at and you're like, I don't know if this was intentional or not, and there's some kind of awkwardness there. The only thing that's awkward in Uprising is those double-sided cards, and apparently there's a system officially to draft them correctly. So James said there was an article going up that will describe that how we can draft the dragons without showing that I just took the dragon with the dragon on the back so you can all see it. So it's a total home run. I mean, this may be not even just limited. This may be the best set of Flesh and Blood that we've seen. And I think, real talk, I mean, let's be honest. I think this was a make it or break it moment probably for Flesh and Blood. The switch out of Tales of Aria and Everfest going into the switch from First Edition Unlimited, kind of what would colloquially be known as the free Tindies phase being over, the speculating side of the game and the big investments dropping off quite a bit since First Edition was no longer kind of just the easy answer to, what is a card worth and what is collectible. And so I think Legend Story really needed to come out with this set as like a real home run to kind of establish that stabilization of, we know things have changed. We're changing a lot of things. Living Legends kind of changing. We're making a lot of rather dramatic changes to the way that you should expect Flesh and Blood to continue on. And so I think if you do that in tandem with a weaker set or a less fun set or a clunkier set, that would drive confidence down pretty heavily. But I got to tell you, like, I think I could not be more excited for this. And just the vibe of the premiere weekend, everybody was like, this is so fun. It's so good. Is absolutely amazing. The way that these things interact. The 3 heroes makes total sense. The way they interact makes sense. All the cards are like rather simple, like the rupture mechanic, super easy. Fai's ability, just getting a Phoenix Flame, easy to understand. It's just really nice. So I would just say for anybody watching out there, like, it's worth it. Like this is a bomb set. It's the kind of thing where I'll probably want to play Uprising sealed like in like 3 or 4 years, right? Like keep some around and just have it around to play. I think it's going to be like kind of a milestone set for the game. So that's my quick take on Uprising, and I'll tell you a little bit more after this drink. Green tea. You know, the weird thing about it, it's not actually green. Yeah, that'll trip you up. You expect it to be green, then you look at it and it's not. It's actually brown. So I guess it's green before you brew it. Kind of like how the quarter pounder with cheese is a quarter pound before it's grilled. In case you didn't know that. Okay, I'm going to be checking in with you guys on chat. I was just kind of going on a diatribe there. And then we're going to look at my sealed pool. We're going to talk about what's going on and some of the things that I did and maybe I should have done or should have not done. I ended up going 2-1. So here's how my sealed pool went. I built Fai, and I think that's the default, just like it is in Briar. You kind of come out of this Tales as the last sealed deck that we had, and you think, okay, well, there's this Premier aggro deck, like it's going to be really hard for people to have pools that can compete with it, like Briar was. So if you've got a decent enough Ninja pool, go ahead and go for it. And the reality is you're going to have a decent enough Ninja pool almost every time, and it's easier to evaluate your Ninja pool than it is to evaluate your Dromai pool or your Iyslander pool. And in a world premiere, I think that's a really important driving factor. That if you didn't study the cards out and get all sweaty about it, like, and you just came into it and you said, okay, I'm just going to open my cards and just kind of go with it, see what happens. You're going to look at Fai and you're going to be like, oh, it's like 3 and 4 attacks with Go again, like ability to get Phoenix Flame, weapon that swings for 3. Like, this is a really stable package coming out of the gate, easy to evaluate. I can look at turn-by-turn math and say, like, I can block here and prevent 6, or I can attack with those cards and do 8. So it's an easier kind of basic deck to have online. So that's where I went first and won the first 2 rounds, and then came up against, those were both Fai mirrors, and came up in my third Fai mirror on my 3rd round and played against a deck that was clearly better than mine. Like it wasn't even close. Like it was unbelievable. So good. So I thought to myself, well, if those kinds of decks exist, I saw cards I hadn't seen before, like 5 cards that were just like, oh my gosh, that does what? And the fact that I didn't have any of those made me say, you know what? I know that if I keep going with this deck, I'm probably going to run into a bunch of mirrors, and I'm probably going to lose a lot of them because at this stage, the 2-to-1-ish area, the good fight decks are starting to really rise to the top. So I actually switched to Dromai in between those rounds. So then on my 4th round, I was playing Dromai, and then I went 2-1 again. I had a really tight game at the end against Fai, where I just couldn't get my stuff online in time to stabilize. I will say the Dromai games that I won, it is kind of a Prism feeling thing where you give up a lot of tempo early. You're building Ash, you're building the Ash Wings, you're swinging in when you can, you're pitching your red cards. And then I would stabilize at like anywhere from 1 to 5 health, usually, whenever I would be able to start turning it around and they would have to start blocking. And it's really difficult to block like 4, 5, 6 little dragon missiles coming at you. Like there's some really strong plays late game with Dromai where you play a red 0-cost Go again, and you swing 6, let's say 6 Aether Ash Wings, and effectively your math is now block 9 and then play a card for 6 damage. So you're like averaging 15 in hand value a turn, and that continues to kind of spiral out of control as they work through their quell and have to deal with it. So it was a super fun deck. This was my favorite play style in the entire weekend was Dromai. So I can't wait to talk about that, and we'll look at that pool too. And then I actually built an Iyslander deck after the event and played that in like a bunch of the Team Covenant meetups that we were doing around. And that played really well too. But I do think Iyslander sealed pools are going to have two distinct forks. You're going to have I have enough big arcane damage to just burn somebody down before they can apply enough pressure to get me to lethal. There is that version of the deck. But then secondarily, I think there is I've got the right blue cards. I've got the right blue non-attacks. And I can start getting control of this game over time and winning exchanges. And there's some very key cards for that strategy to work. So let's look at it. I'm going to zoom in. First of all, does anyone have any questions or anything else that they want to hear about before we dive in? I'm going to start evaluating these sealed pools, and then I think we'll talk about Team Blitz after we do it, because I'm just like really excited to talk about this. James Armstrong, that's a good question. Did you suffer from Phantasm on the Ashwings much? I think so. I pulled no sixes in my sealed pool. I only saw my opponent had 1 6 throughout all the sealed decks that I saw. Now, that's not to say that that doesn't exist. Like, there will be decks that have more sixes, especially Red Flex is just like, that card is so good. It's so good. So there are decks that are going to have that, but on the average, I would say it's very rare that you would have to deal with Phantasm much. Now, in draft, it's different. I think for me, I was drafting generic sixes really high early on in the draft, and then I was just getting past Fai cards, and it was insane. Like, I had the best Fai draft deck I'll ever see in my life. DRK Agumon there. Is that a Digimon there? This is also the first set where we don't have a first unlimited split, so did you notice people were value drafting more because of the foil rarity changes? I don't know. I don't think so. And one of the things that helps is the token slot is actually holding those Marvel Dragons. As far as I remember, like, that's what people were saying. I didn't get to experience what that was like. But you actually get the Marvel, but you can't play it in your pool. So in terms of drafting, like, you don't have to waste a pick on the really expensive, awesome stuff. You can build a good draft deck and just keep those nice cards for yourselves. You guys are blowing me up here, so let me reverse here. Misa, hello. Long time no see. Are there any plans for pro-level Flesh and Blood gameplay videos? You know, that's a really good question for me, I guess, specifically as the marketing person here. I feel like there's a really good amount of pro Flesh and Blood gameplay out there. What there's less of is like kind of the medium. We like to be in like kind of the medium zone. I think these streams do that pretty well, of like enjoying the game mostly, and then trying to get better at it over time. So I could see us doing like some commentary and like some higher level videos, but that's kind of unsettled right now. I think for the next few months, really diving into sealed and evaluating decks and kind of helping people on that mid tier kind of rise up with us to be more like kind of pro level, because obviously 3-3 in the Team Blitz, not exactly there yet. Gree asking, what was your favorite card of the weekend? My favorite card of the weekend is in my Dromai deck, and it is Skittering Sands. I think Skittering Sands is a phenomenal card. I love it so much. It won me the turnaround, the pivot on every Dromai game that I won. It was block 9, play Skittering Sands, and swing for 4 plus 3 or 4 little dragons. And it became the kind of situation where like you have to block. You have to start blocking. And now you have to start blocking 1s with 1 card each. And that was, nobody was ready for that. Ricard, how did you think draft will go in Uprising compared to previous? Talked about that a little bit earlier. I think it's going to be a fascinating draft format. I think it's very much unsettled. There's not exactly an obvious answer to that right now, but it will be super fun. I had a great time in the draft. There's a lot of different strategies that you're going to see people suggest when it comes to drafting, and I like that a lot, because it's not like Tails where it's just like stay open and kind of figure it out, because there's really not a lot to stay open on. You can stay open on a closed Draconic pool. You can go all in on Iyslander, or your only other option is staying open is getting generics. And there are some good generics here, but like Are you going to pass that, like really good ninja card or that really good wizard card to get them? Like that's a really good question. I think we got to ask that. Jaded Panda there. I think that's what it is. I think that's the right name. Can't wait to see how to build decks for pre-release. Dromai seems hard for me for intricacy. Yeah, she's very difficult. I think it's one of the more fascinating heroes that we've seen. It feels like it feels like a better version of Prism. Not better in that it's better, but like mechanically better version of Prism. So all that Spectra stuff going on. There's not the Soul Instant Spectral Shield. There's just less of that, and it's more about building that board state. And then your opponent can still always do something about it. They don't have to side in 6s to have any shot at beating you. They can just wreck your dragons. And they do. They do often. So it becomes less about, do I have Spectra breakers in my deck? And more about, do I want to spend the time to kill these dragons on my turn and give them an open turn where they can play more? I mean, it's the classic illusionist fandango there. Mason asking, what was the strongest rares encountered during the rounds? The ones that really made you go, wow, that's strong. I think Uprising is a hugely important card. Uprising is big card. Also, I pulled the 5/5 dragon, and I think every time that hit the table, it was crazy. Like, you play it, you destroy a piece of equipment right off the bat. I was destroying Heat Wave. I was destroying the Freezy helmet, Glacial Horns. It just kind of rather suddenly. So even if they kill that on the next turn, the fact that you're dropping 3 cards out of hand for it, right? It's invoke plus 2, like a blue and a yellow or 2 blues. But you're usually invoking, so that's a 5 damage attack. So far, you're 3 cards in for 5, which is really poor. Then you discard an equipment, so that ups the effectiveness of that. Then maybe you attack with 3 or 4 other dragons because the invoke is a red card played on the turn to trigger Dromai's go again. So if you can do that, kind of cycle those out to late game and then drop this big dragon and swing with everything, it gets them in a really weird situation where they have to block and have enough gas to kill the 5 health thing, and then they can't possibly pressure you, too much after that. So there's some really fun play there. But I thought Uprising was super strong on the weekend. Anytime that card dropped, I kind of was in trouble. Let me keep going down here. DOWAG, would you agree with the general consensus Team Blitz fixes the Blitz format? No, I wouldn't yet. Okay, I'm just going to scroll to the bottom. I don't think I can keep up with all that. Okay, and then Jaded asking, how many blues would you say make a balanced Dromai deck? Imagine a more yellow than red, but mostly red-yellow deck. Dromai's weird. Dromai's so weird. I mean, it really is going to depend. Let's look at it. Let's take a peek here. All right, so I'm up here. I think everything's about as in focus as I can get it. Okay, so let's start. This is kind of how I divided it. Let's just do a quick rundown and make sure we understand how each of these heroes works. Starting with Fai here. And Fai, I think there's a big question off the bat. Do you bring 3 Phoenix Flame or 2? And I think that's going to be a question for all of us, whether or not we want to do this. So we're going to start with one of these in the discard, and then the ability here is really, and a lot of the time you're spending 1 to get a Phoenix Flame. I mean, that's just kind of how it's working out a decent amount of time. It's like you might have lines where you play a 0-cost go again attack, like let's say a red scar for a scar. You pitch a blue, you hit Searing Emberblade for 3, you pay 1, you get a Phoenix Flame. You Phoenix Flame for 1, and then you play a 0-cost to finish it out. So don't be afraid to spend 1 there. Also, don't be afraid to spend 3 to get a Phoenix Flame at other times, right? Like, there are times a card like Strategic Planning is a good example. You see so much interplay in answers to a lot of these heroes' kind of shticks. They're trying to throw your Phoenix Flame from graveyard to the bottom of deck. You can respond to that, pay a blue out of hand to get it into your hand so that you can use it next turn. Those kinds of interchanges are important. But generally, your lines are going to be open with a go again attack, play another go again attack or a Searing Emberblade, go get a Phoenix Flame, attack with that, and then hopefully have another attack in hand. And a lot of the time, you might be looking at like a 1-cost go again, and then a 2-cost closer, and then the Phoenix Flame in the middle. I was prone to swinging the sword because weapons are really good, and I think it's really important to use them. So that's Fai. So let's look at kind of show you the the pool for Fai here. Let me get this stuff up here. We got a lot of space. And I ended up on 2 Phoenix Flames in my builds. It's really can be devastating to draw at the wrong time, especially because it doesn't block and it doesn't do, it's dead in hand until you're on your turn. So you have a full cycle where like you're not doing anything with it. And so I just ran 2 and I felt like that was a really good situation for me. So first is, did I get any equipment specifically for the hero? I did get the Tide Flippers, and those are notable. Every one of these heroes has access to 1 Arcane Barrier equipment. Fai is obviously kind of less inclined to want to pitch cards to that on opponent's turn, but against Iyslander, you absolutely bring that. Against everybody, you absolutely bring that. Not absolutely. You might bring the Quelling feat against Dromai if you have that option. I did not, so it wasn't a big deal. Then I'm just going to separate this into basically go again attacks, which I put up front. And then I'll separate them out into blues and yellows as well. That's kind of like a resource base, right? And I'll kind of get these sorted out. And what you do find is that Fai does not have much in the way of go again attack, or not go again attacks, but blocks. Very, very, very poor blocker, unless you build specifically to make that not the case. Dust Runner, that's a pretty solid little go again attack there, just a 1 for X. This card, Soaring Strike, big deal. It's a great chain starter. I really dig that card. All these cards, and you start to see like kind of the patterns. They all have a certain vibe to them. We'll get these. All these that just kind of naturally have go again are worth looking at for a lot of good reasons. There's another Dust Runner red there. Cinder Skin. We've got these kind of conditional go agains. The 2 or more, so these are your second in the chain. This is how and the 2 Soaring Strikes here was a really good, kind of sent me this direction. And then look at this. Attack reaction, kind of, this is kind of your OMG slot, like did I get anything crazy for this hero? Combustion Point is a card that I really, really screwed up my understanding of that card, and I suffered for it. So, Combustion Point, 3 block, 1 cost, +1 to an attack. Generally, any attack that you'd be playing. Some of them not, but mostly Draconic Ninja is like all you're in. And then this text here, it says you may banish. This is Combustion Point. It says you may banish a non-equipment defending card with armor less than the number of Draconic Chainlinks you control. Now, when I first read this in the World Premiere, you learn this lesson now so I don't have to learn it. I can learn it for you, rather. You don't have to learn it yourself. I read that and it said you may banish an equipment with less armor than Draconic Chainlink. So I was thinking, well, in this format, nobody's blocking with their equipment. It's 0 block. Why would I want to run that? I'm not going to run a 1 for +1. I'm out of here. So I actually didn't even run this in my Fai deck. But if you read the card, if you actually read the card, because you're in the World Premiere and you're like reading fast, like, I got to build it. You don't have much time. And this is banish a non-equipment, in fact, defending card with armor less. So if you're on the 3rd chain link, you can, if they block with a 2 block, you can banish it, and it's like route. If you're on the 4th chain link, you can banish a 3 block, and it's like route even more. So this card is good. This card is very good. If I were to do it again, I would run the card. One of the best cards. That's like a bomb in Limited, if you will. That's usually going to be like +4 damage and a hit effect, which is just, I mean, oh my gosh, it's just so good. But alas, lessons learned. Okay, then we go up to let's go up to the top row here. And I don't know if this is the best way to look at things or to think about things. Again, this is moving science, right? There's no grand, kind of a known way to do this. But you'll see, these are all the cards that natively have Go Again in this Fai deck. So, as you might imagine, that's an important part of going wide with this hero, right? You're able to get more attacks on the chain, which enables you to get free Phoenix Flames. And that's going to allow you to keep going wider and wider and wider. So red hits here, like things that are notable to me. Any 0 for 3 go again is pretty good. You're really going to be looking to, you can open with a 0 cost. That allows you to pitch a blue, play a 1 cost go again, like a Soaring Strike. It also allows you to use the sword that turn. So you're already on Chain Link 3, having spent 3 cards total. And then the Phoenix Flame comes in again for another damage. And you also got to look at lines that aren't as fancy. Like there are lines that aren't as fancy that are totally acceptable. For instance, like pitch a blue, red Soaring Strike into Sword Swing is still a respectable 7 damage for 2 cards using your weapon and potentially a hit effect. So there's just these opportunities. You kind of got to look at it and say, like, I think that's one of the mistakes that I made a little early as well, is like, it's not necessarily about maximizing those super wide turns every time. You absolutely can. And if Fai gets on top of a hero, it's very difficult to kind of get out from that and to pivot out of that. But there are some, like, clever little plays. You look at red Dust Runner Outlaw, you look at red Soaring Strike. These are pretty easy, like pitch, swing for 4, swing for 3, arsenal a card, keep the momentum up, but not going all out, because you can force some Fai turns, and there are some turns when you really should be blocking. Donald Kelly asking, is Draconic Chain just a combat chain with Draconic attack? Yeah, so any card that says Draconic on it. So like if we have like Soaring Strikes up right now, that it says Draconic Ninja Action. So it's just got to be a Draconic card, and most of them are. So yeah, so this is a pretty decent Fai pool. I mean, you've got a lot of go again here. You do have also, though, a lot of it in blue and yellow. So like I've got blues and yellows, blues, yellows here. I ended up running like 13 to 14 blue yellow cards. I think I was on like 8 to 9 blue, let's say 7 to 9 blue, and the rest yellows. And about a little over half the deck was red. And I felt like I always had like just enough resources to get done what I needed to do. So I think that's a really important thing too, is like not min-maxing so hard that you can't actually pay off a turn, because you have to remember your sword costs 2. Most of these attacks cost 1. You're going to need blues to power that kind of a turn. So it's kind of, don't fall into the trap of like Draconic is all about just redlining everything. Then we also come to like cards that are super important. And if I were looking at what would start to send me in Ninja's direction, Engulfing Flame Wave is a big one. Like this card has so much heat, pun not intended, but here we are. It has so much heat. Even as the opener for your turn, right? Like even just pitch a blue, swing Engulfing Flame Wave for 2. Allows you to reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a 0 cost, you can banish it and play it this turn. So like the card advantage of that is phenomenal. If you think about what's in my deck that costs 0, right? Like all of your Brand with Cinder Claws are 0. All of your Ronin Renegades are 0. All of your Phoenix Flames, all of your Rising Resentments, all of your Lava Vein Loyalty. There's others, right? So even as the opener, even as the one thing that you do, just threatening 5 and let me take a, let's say, 30% shot of hitting a 0 cost red on the top. I don't know if you can allow that to happen as the opponent. I just don't know if you can be like, yeah, I'm okay taking that chance. I had to once, and luckily it worked out for me. But it's almost a must block kind of card. So if I had like 2 or 3 Engulfing Flame Waves, I would be really, really kind of moving into this space of, I think Fai is high on my list in a sealed pool like that. Cinderskin Devotion and Lava Vein Loyalty, these are 2 cards that have this kind of conditional go again. There are some turns where you just like pitch blue, Engulfing Flame Wave, Cinderskin Devotion for 4 has go again, move into the Phoenix Flame. Those are pretty solid turns, and you're threatening a good amount there. I think Lava Vein Loyalty and Cinderskin both having 3 block is not to be discounted. So if you've got yellows and blues in your Cinderskin and Lava Veins, you're in a pretty good spot. Like that's a really nice place to be. I like that quite a bit. And then we have Rise from the Ashes here, this blue Rise. This is not a terrible card. It's blue, so most of the time you're going to be pitching it. You don't really like seeing it late game, but it is nice that late game, like even a blue Rise from the Ashes, you can get a Phoenix Flame back, and then you can play an opener, play a Phoenix Flame, go get another Phoenix Flame, play another Phoenix Flame. And late in the game, those constant barrage of 1-cost go-agains can be really good. Because, obviously you're down at the last moment of the game. Maybe your opponent's on 2-1 life. You've kind of stalemated for a second. Just an unbelievable amount of 1 damage attacks obviously forces the tempo there, forces the issue. When they start having to bail out their hand, blocking one damage attacks, you're in a really good spot. So I think Rise from the Ashes is really solid. Even just like stupid things, like Rise from the Ashes blue, Phoenix Flame for 1, Sword Swing, pitch a blue, Phoenix Flame for 1 again. All good. And then if you have, I think it's Heat Wave. I think Heat Wave's the one that gives you +1 to all your Phoenix Flames. That equipment is like really important for a really good ninja deck. It's so good. Like it's really good. So if you see Heat Wave, I think that does change the math a little bit, where it's like I should probably start thinking about where to go on Ninja here. So I guess for me, like big hits in Ninja Sealed, I'm looking at Engulfing Flame Wave. And again, I've played this a small amount, so we're going to learn a lot more about this format as we go. I'd look for Engulfing Flame Wave. I'd look for Heat Wave. I'd look for Tide Flippers for that Arcane Barrier. Any good Majestics, like Combustion Point, obviously going to make a difference. And then just, how many good red attacks above 3 damage do I have? And particularly, like, can I hit my breakpoints and hit a good blue pitch? Kind of balance. So like, do I have some good 1-cost that I can pair with the Searing Ember Blade? Do I have some good finishers, rupture finishers that can get really solid? But honestly, Fai is just like, I think it's always going to be pretty good. It's going to be hard for me to imagine a Fai deck that's just like not playable. So you kind of start here and say like, okay, if nothing else is good enough, I think my default becomes Fai at that point. Nathaniel's saying correctly. So all these cards, like if you look at Lava Vein Loyalty, for instance, the moment that card becomes a resolved card and it is now an attacking card, the passive text is turned on. So you then control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links. So if I do like Draconic Attack, Lava Vein Loyalty, or Searing Ember Blade as my second attack, they have Go Again. So like, it's not hard. These cards can easily get Go Again. And that's why the 0-cost Go Again openers are also an important part of the puzzle. But yeah, this is pretty standard aggro. I mean, you're going to be sending a lot of attacks. You're going to try to threaten on hits that are really annoying. Ideally, you get them at the end of the chain, but also don't be afraid to use a card strictly for value. Like Soaring Strike, maybe you don't have anything in your hand that's going to hit that ability. Maybe you have a 2-cost card you want to give Go Again to. It still might be the better play to just open with Soaring Strike, swing the Ember Blade, and arsenal that card for the next turn. So I think a lot of Fai players, certainly the ones that I was playing against early, were forcing wide turns that actually weren't very good. So just be careful, because it's really tempting to be like, okay, I got to get to 3 and then get a free Phoenix Flame, and then I got to hit this Rupture. But then you look at it, it's like, this Rupture keyword doesn't actually matter in terms of the game state right now. So that's the Fai pool. And then it's worth noting, like, I felt like my Draconic pools always looked kind of the same. I feel like I always had kind of the same spread of cards, and I don't know if that's by design or just kind of the averages working out. But if we look at this can kind of help us learn a little bit more about Dromai and Fai and kind of where we might want to go with them on these. So we got 5 here. I saw this pretty often, like when I was evaluating other sealed pools, you'd have like 4 or 5 of these, and I think they're all in red, which makes them all look really tantalizing. You're like, oh, I got to go Draconic. I got all these red cards. Just remember, I think they're only in red. So examples of notable things, I think Breaking Point is a very notable card. It's a 1 for 5. It blocks for 3. It has the ability to destroy Arsenal, but you don't always need that. There's a lot of times in Seal where it gets a little down and dirty, and Breaking Point can just be a really nice, like, open with a 0-cost, Go Again card, pitch, swing Searing Ember Blade, hit a Breaking Point for 5, kind of push the average value of that turn up. those can be really, really nice turns. So don't fall into the trap that this is only playable on Chainlink 4 or higher. You can also just, pitch a yellow, play a 1-cost go again, play a breaking point, go to the next turn. 1 for 5 is still 1 for 5. And it blocks 4, the magic number 3. Other card that I was really impressed with on the weekend was Burn Away. Notably, it blocks for 3. I think in a Fai deck, if you look at the spread here, there's not a lot of 3 blocks. So it's nice if for no other reason than that. But I actually found this card very playable. Late game, obviously, is very nice, but a 0 for 4 go again. This was especially good in Dromai for me. Like, you basically have a 0 for 4 out of hand that turns on all of those dragon attacks. So, like, you can block 9, swing 4, plus, let's say, 4 or 5 damage at 1. So I was actually running this and happy to see this more in Dromai, which I guess makes sense because it appears that she's on it there. So maybe I should have read the art more than the card. And literally the flavor text is her. So I guess this is not a revelation. It's probably more of a Dromai card. But hey, block 3, 0 for 4, go again late in the game. I don't think Fai is scared of this card either. Then we've got Inflame. You attack with it. If you played another red, return a Phoenix Flame from your graveyard. This is pretty good for going big, but like, let's not forget this is a card for 1 damage. Returns a Phoenix Flame, so like, I like this card a lot, especially on like a Heat Wave turn. I think that's probably when you crack Heat Wave and you can do at least 2 Phoenix Flames. But like, it's still a card for 1, so like, it's not exactly card neutral because you're getting a Phoenix Flame back. You're not getting any card back. You swing the Phoenix Flame for 1. That's still basically a card for 2 damage over the course of the turn. It can build your chain links, sure. But like, again, this is where like it's very easy to kind of get in a situation where you're doing like flashy stuff, but the turn by turn value is not actually super high. So I was finding when I was playing against Fai a bunch, I would just be taking the 1s and 2s and watching them kind of burn their hand value for basically nothing. Which was nice. Man, I don't drink enough tea, I feel like tea is the kind of thing that it's like soup, right? It's like you never want to order it, but it's really nice when you have it. So that's my treatise on tea for today. Then we got Flameborn Retribution. It's a 1 for 3. Now, this card, there's a lot of question marks about this card, really, right? Like, you really don't want to defend with this. It defends for 2. Nobody who wants to block for 2. Like, that's not awesome. You can play it for 3, for 1. You get a Phoenix Flame back when you defend with it, so that's something. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's as a fine card, a 3/2 block on like the Engulfing. And you get a Phoenix Flame back in hand, that's not bad. It sets you up again for these Heat Wave turns, something that again becomes a quintessential equipment. But if I just saw like a 1/3/2 out there in the wild, like nobody would be like, oh my gosh. So the degree to which a Phoenix Flame from your graveyard is important is a great question. I don't think I ended up playing this in Dromai, but I did play this in Fai. Because you have to imagine, like, first turn, you have the ability to get yourself a Phoenix Flame. It's also, it's also worth noting, it depends on the pool, right? Like, if you need 1-cost go-agains, Dromai doesn't mind that. Like, pitch a red, create an ash, Flameborn Retribution for 3, swing with 3 or 4 dragons is a fine Dromai turn. That's a 2 for 7. But it's, it looks cooler maybe than it plays. And I will say, putting these like long chain links out with Fai looks awesome. Like, it looks truly awesome. All this flame stuff, you just like feel like you're on the top of the world, burning it all down. And then we have the reverse of this. So Flame Call Awakening and Flame Call Retribution are kind of the mirrors of each other. These are 1/3s. I like Awakening a lot better because it's doing what it's rewarding you for doing what the card wants to do anyway. So I'd rather swing for 3 than block for 2. And when you do that, you can search your deck for a Phoenix Flame, reveal it, put it in hand. I liked this in Dromai quite a bit for the same reason. Like, pitch 1, create an ash, swing for 3, swing for another 1 because of Phoenix Flame, and then swing more on your Aether Ash Wings. So I feel like these are more, almost like these are more Dromai cards. These 3 here, and then these more Fai cards. But I did play Breaking Point in everything. I mean, a 1 for 5, I would play in everything that has the ability to store Arsenal and blocks for 3. If you're in a limited environment, you see this card, no matter where you are, what you're playing, or what's happening, you probably should try to run it. A 1/5/3, come on now. Okay. So this is my 5 pool, and then let's not forget, you got to look at your generic equipment. I got the Quelling Robe only as my generic quell, so that was not ideal. And then everybody gets to run Helios Mitre. Is this Greek? What is this word? Is this I don't know how to say this. Miter? Like a miter saw? I don't think it's like a miter saw. It doesn't look like one, at least. All right, so there's 5. I'm going to pack up these ninja cards, and then we're going to keep the Draconics, and then we're going to look over at what Dromai is up to. And run Combustion Point, for sure. Run Combustion Point. It's a good card. It's like Route, but better. Okay. So we get the Tide Flippers out of here. We get Fai and Searing out of here. This weapon's good. And again, this is technically the Fatigue hero of the set. I like how insane that is. That the aggro hero is actually the Fatigue hero. Pretty wild. It says like Miter Saw. Okay, good. Miter. All right, so check out the Dromai business here. So we'll pull up Dromai here. Important things to note about Dromai. So I did run into some situations where I did not have a red Go Again card. So I might have had 4 or 5 Aether Ashwings out, and it really was not able to produce value for me. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm valuing at this point Go Again red cards with Dromai exceedingly high. Like, I think the first thing I'll check across all of the Draconic and Illusionist pool is how many Go Again cards that are red do I have, particularly 0 cost. All right, so I did pull Silken Form there, which is really important. This is probably the best Quell equipment in the game because it has a dual purpose. Nick asking, how is Fai a Fatigue deck? So if you come into a game of Flesh and Blood, I think the first thing you have to ask is, if neither of us had any cards, who would win? And Fai is the only hero in the set with a weapon. So I can go to an end game where I pitch yellow, swing for 2, or swing for 3, pitch yellow, swing for 3, pitch yellow, swing for 3. There is no other hero that can keep up with that. So if Iyslander runs out of cards, she runs out of damage. If Dromai runs out of cards, she runs out of damage, except swinging 1 per turn with an Aether Ashwing or with a big dragon. So if you can find yourself in a situation where you have a greater than 3 health dragon that you can play as Fai is running out of cards, you can win that Fatigue matchup. But otherwise, you do have to understand that Fai will be the weapon swinging hero at the end of this game. So there may well be some draft strategies or some sealed strategies that are about collecting all the 3 blocks and literally trying to take your opponent to Fatigue. It's fair. You can get there with Iyslander if you pull the right cards, which we'll look at Oasis Respite and these kinds of cards. But that is technically a viable strategy. It might be one that we need to look at as we look through these sealed pools and think about drafting. That is conceivable. So I did get Silken Form. Silken Form is, like I said, the best Quell equipment because on their turn, you can pitch a blue, Quell 3 times, and then use your instant at the end of the turn to get a free dragon. I think all the other Quell equipment, you have to crack it to do something on your turn, and so you have to choose one or the other. And this one, you can actually get full benefit out of everything the equipment's trying to do on your turn, or on their turn, which is excellent. So don't forget that you can Quell, crack it, and get an Aether Ashwing. I did that a lot, and I had a great time with it. Sean's saying, doesn't Iyslander have a weapon? Yes, it does have a weapon, but it cannot be used unless you played a non-attack. So once you run out of cards, you can't use Waning Moon anymore. All right, so we've got Dromai, we got Silken Form. We've got the Storm of Sandakai, which doesn't matter. It just gives you the ability to attack with an ally, which you want to be doing all the time. So it's not even worth noting. You may as well just print it on the card. It's the same. So all that we need to know here is basically if we pitch red cards, we make Ash. But keep this in mind, if you pitch red cards, that's bad. Because pitching red cards is the worst card to pitch. It gives you the least amount of value for a pitched resource. So I saw a lot of people get in the habit of like, pitch a red card to do 4. It's like, that's 2 cards for 4 damage. Like you're not going to win doing that, no matter how much ash you make. So that's something to really look for. Is like, how is there sequences where I can pitch a red card, play a 1-cost something, and get enough value out of that turn where it's worth it absent the ash creation. The ash creation is on top of it, and or do I have enough ash generating cards that I'm not going to have to rely on that mechanic as much as I otherwise might. So here's our ash wings. These are, the arcane barrier on these is something that is worth really appreciating. Once you have 3 or 4 of these out, Iyslander can't win unless they deal with it. So I think you need to really appreciate how to play against Iyslander with Dromai and getting Arcane Barrier online and just pitching cards to pay for it, especially red cards. Because like there's a lot of sequences where Iyslander's doing 3 Arcane, and there would be moments where it'd be like activate Helios, pitch a red, and then take 2, generate 2 ash, and those are really strong turns. So I think this matchup is really interesting. Like Dromai getting enough ash wings on the board, does the Iyslander player have enough Singe in hand or in deck to actually take care of that before they just get fatigued out? Because you can find yourself in a situation with Arcane Barrier 5, and Dromai, built with enough resource base, can just pitch for the rest of the game, and Iyslander really can't do anything except for sling generic attacks. So especially in draft, I think that's going to be notable. As they buy all of those arcane damage cards, and then you come out with Arcane Barrier 6, and you're like, I've got all my blues sided in, and I've got 6 Arcane Barrier, and like there's nothing you can do to stop me. Also pulled the Silent Stilettos. For Arcane Barrier 1 here is less relevant, but it's still worth knowing. You're really here for the pay 3 and gain an action point if an attacking ally dies or is destroyed. So this is important. I think it's just nice to be able to have this threat, particularly whenever they try to Phantasm a big dragon. You've got a few Aether Ashwings out. You can pitch a card to keep going. Just make sure it's worth it. Because sometimes, like, pitching 2 cards to do 3 more damage on the turn, not exactly exciting. I will say one of the good uses of this card is, like, a lot of times you'll have an Aether Ashwing that you've played Skittering Sands to make one of your little baby dragons really awesome. And if you start swinging with your non-awesome little baby dragon, so like just do 1 to my opponent, right? That's the idea. So if I just do 1 and they Phantasm it, I can pay 3 and still have my big dragon come in. So it's really I think based around that interaction where you might play a big dragon and then swing with one of your tiny dragons. If they pop that tiny dragon with the intention of preventing your big dragon from swinging, you can pay 3, give an action point, and keep rolling. So it just kind of, it gives you the ability to swing with your value first and not have to go all in, swinging your big dragon, whether it's a big Aether Ashwing or like a summon dragon. And you have insulation from that. So like they have to take 4 or 5 damage before they actually put the Phantasm on the board. So make sure you get your value first before you swing with the big fancy thing. That is good advice to take with you throughout your whole life, actually. Eggs in baskets, that kind of thing. Yeah. You guys heard that one? Okay, but enough about me. Let's look at the Dromai cards that I've got. They're here right in front of me. So here's something cool. Here's these little checklist cards. I didn't use these. These were weird. But apparently it's a normal thing. So I think what you do, maybe I'll just do it now. I don't have a pin here. So like you'll get one of these in any pack that has an Invoke Dragon card. And then whatever that card is, the Invoke card, you'll mark the little checkbox and you'll put this in your deck, and then you'll put your little dragon off to the side. And then this is basically acting as the Invoke card in your deck. So that it tells you how much it pitches for, or how much it costs, how much it blocks for, and how much it pitches for. So like you play the Invoke, and then you go to the side and get the dragon and put it in. And that is actually really handy, especially in like the World Premiere stuff, because you don't really know what these dragons do. So like I had my Invoke in the sleeve, and I'd be like, okay, hold on, like I gotta pull it out of the sleeve, and then they obviously know you have a dragon. So these are worth using. I was just stubborn and foolish. Is that in focus enough? Well, let me check that. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's about as good as it gets there. One man show today, you know? That's a little better. Okay. So that means, oh, I got dragons. So let's look at those dragons. Look at this. How about a majestic dragon to start with? Invoke Tumulti. I should have been playing this Dromai deck from day one, like from the open, for sure. Like, it was the better of the two decks that I played on that. It was so good. So this guy's awesome. It's a 5/5. Like, 5 is a really oppressive breakpoint for a lot of heroes to hit. A lot of times Iyslander can never kill this. So if you're an Iyslander player, that's something to keep in mind. I need to be able to kill dragons. Because if you can't do that, this is impossible. Like, this gets so good. So it's 5 damage, which is great. I mean, like, 5 damage for 0 is something that I think we would all play. And then basically you get to snipe an equipment the moment it comes out, which is phenomenal. I did play this deck. I played 5 for 3 rounds, and I played Dromai for 3 rounds. I went 2-1 respectively with both. Okay, so we got Tumulti. It's good. Then we've got Miragi. I say Miragi, but I don't know if that's right. This is notable because it's a 1-cost dragon. So you can pitch a red, generate an ash. Now, worth noting, this is something to take with you into these events. So any card like this that says target ash, keep this in mind, that whenever you announce a card to play it, you do a couple of things. You say its name, you put it on the table, you pay costs, and then you declare any targets. So when you pitch that red to play for Invoke, you can't target the ash that goes on the stack, you know, the fancy way of saying these things, to be created. So you pitch the red, create an ash goes on the stack. So Invoke is actually having to target ash that's on the board before the ash that gets created from the pitch goes in. That's because it specifically says target. Now, if we look at, let's look at Rake the Embers red. You'll notice there's a difference here, and this is really notable to understand. So it says create an ash token, then transform up to 2 ash. It doesn't say transform up to 2 target ash you control. So this is kind of one of the gotchas of the set, is that Rake the Embers, you can utilize the ash that you make off of a red pitch, whereas the Invokes, you have to have the ash in play before you play the Invoke to use it. So keep that in mind. But Miragi here, 3 block, 2/4, first dragon attack each turn loses and can't gain Phantasm. And that doesn't necessarily mean this is the dragon attack you want this to apply to. So a lot of times you might Skittering Sands as well. You might want to send your 4 attack dragon in first. Phantasm was not a huge concern for me in Sealed. I think I had like 1 thing pop from Phantasm over the course of those 3 games. I think it will be more of a thing in draft, so you have to play around this more, and Miragi gets better in that format. But a solid dragon. I mean, it's 2 damage. That's 1 more than a normal dragon. Love it. And then we have Evoke Dromai, and I think this is probably the most notable dragon, just in Sealed, just kind of on the face of it. And it's really because this is a 0-cost Invoke. That's so important for Dromai, ultimately. Is being able to block 9, play a 0-cost Invoke, which covers your red card for the turn. It has Go Again. It now gets you a 3/2 in play. It generates an action point when it attacks, so even if they pop it with Phantasm, you don't need that Go Again to resolve. So you pop it with Phantasm, you can keep going with your little dragons. And it like turns on your dragon army for the cost of a card. So like any Aether Ashwings after Dromai swings is at its huge value. And if you see Dromai, I think this is a card that tells me I think I need to think about Dromai really seemingly. Like I really need to look at going with this hero, because this is such a good tempo card. Like it totally can change the kind of the makeup of the game as you're going through and playing these out. You're going to do a lot of, at least I was doing a decent amount of blocking with Dromai as I was building Ash and Aether Ashwings. And this can be the card that comes into hand that really starts to turn that game around and forces your opponent to start responding to you. So I really, really, really thought this one was great. Again, because it's 0 cost, that's a 1-card hand that can play that and swing with 3+ Aether Ashwings. That begins to be oppressive and is very Phantasm resilient. So this is real good. Real good. Another thing to keep in mind just in dragons in general, they die constantly. I mean, like, you don't expect to have anything on the board for more than a turn. There's no way that that's allowed to happen. If you get your opponent in a situation where they have to block the dragons so much that they can't then kill the dragons, you have won the game. So the game is at that point over. Iyslander has the hardest time with these dragons, just strictly because you have to have a spell that targets it. That spell has to do enough damage, and it's very difficult to cast 2 spells on your turn. Also, Waning Moon doesn't target an ally. It only targets heroes. So like you're at the mercy of how big your hand can go against dragons. And if you're Iyslander, I think the 6s and 7s are really important for you. I think those become really high priority because of this problem. And you probably should save 1 in Arsenal, which is hard, right? It's impossible for her to do that because she wants to be playing out of Arsenal. But save 1 if you can for both Phantasm reasons and for coming back and swinging 7 into one of the bigger dragons too. Because otherwise you can find yourself in a situation where you literally can never kill one of these dragons, take them off the table, which is not where you want to be against Dromai. There's so much value here. The other thing to keep in mind about dragons is that it's hard, and this is one thing that Uprising has done extremely well. It's really hard to overtly understand the value of these cards. And I think that's one of the more fun things about the entire set. Like, what's the value of an Aether Ashwing? What's the value of an Ash card? What's the value of a dragon in play? Yes, you can on that turn maybe break even on your card by card math, but if this thing swings a second time next turn, a third time next turn, there's that compounding over turn by turn value that you generate here. So, it's all in the moment. It's all kind of this assess as it's happening, and that's the most satisfying piece of Flesh and Blood for me. So that's really, really solid. Also, I see this in the chat at Clutch City. What's up? Good to see you. Saying the free Phoenix Flame does kill Ashwings. I think that's really important. There's a lot of people not honoring those Aether Ashwings up front. And it's so easy to get hit effects or to hit your Phoenix Flames there. Remember, you can just snipe a dragon and keep going. Go Again does resolve. It's not a Spectra. So if you keep the Dromai player's board small, you're going to prevent yourself from getting in the same situation you might find against Prism, where all of a sudden, how and why am I losing? I don't know. It's because you were too busy, distracted by Dromai, and you weren't dealing with the dragons. Now that brings us to what I think is probably one of the most, a couple of the most notable cards. Let's say. Rake the Embers is a standout for me. So when I was reviewing the set before we did the sealed, we just went through and kind of looked at each card again and just kind of made sure there was any rules text that needed to be clarified. Rake the Embers is a standout illusionist card. I think my sealed pool for Dromai would be judged in a lot of ways by how many Rake the Embers you have. Red in particular is really notable. You imagine right here that just pitching a red to play a red Rake the Embers for 2 cards, you end up getting 3 Aether Ashwings, you swing 3 times, and you kind of gain this initial board presence. It's kind of like the thing that generates a lot of Spectral Shields for Prism, the Prismatic. But the difference here is that the Spectrals go away if you do damage to the hero. So there's not really a choice there. Rake kind of puts your opponent in the situation where they have to deal with these baby dragons, or they're going to continue to face kind of mounting pressure turn by turn. So Rake is a big deal. And there was one game where actually this was the start of my my second cycle. I pitched Rake on turn 0 to pay for something, or to Arcane Bear or something, and got it at the bottom. So I knew that this started my stack. And that Rake the Embers, I had enough health where I could kind of block with a couple of cards, play the Rake, create Aether Ashwings. I think it took me up to like 5 or 6, and then swing for 6 damage, and then they had suddenly a very big problem. So that's really important. So Rake is a standout for me. Skittering Sands, also an absolute standout. This card is bonkers. Even if you think about it as a 0 for 4, I mean, you're getting the transformation, you're getting 4 damage right away, and then you're getting any additional Aether Ashwing swings. So Skittering is another card that I think you look at a Dromai pool and you say, like, these are the cards that I need to be looking at to decide if I'm gonna go for it. And the game kind of tells you that this is the case, right? Because in this entire Dromai pool, and like the Dromai specific cards, these are the only 2 blocks that I currently have in this sealed deck. So the game kind of tells you like, hey, you should be playing these cards. Like, these are the cards that you want to be building your board with, that you want to be swinging with. Skittering, to me, just a very important card. Rake the Embers, very important card. These things must be played. Next, we have Sweeping Blow. That's a 1/3/3 with Go Again, which is pretty okay rate-wise. And then when you attack with it, you get an Ash token. I did find myself in a number of situations where I was low on Ash tokens. I actually, one game, I drew an Invoke, and I didn't have any Ash to target. And that's really awkward. So you really don't want to find yourself in that kind of a situation. So the more Ash you can generate, the better. But you also have to remember, you have to keep up, right? Because Fai's doing, 13-ish damage every turn, building these big chain links, and you don't often have the the luxury of being able to block 6 and then do like 3 or 4 and generate an Ash token. So I love this card just because it's a 3 block, because it has a lot of value, because in the early game, in the turn 0, you can pitch, create 2 Ash tokens, swing with a 3. Those are all good plays. I don't quite know where the balance of Ash generation outside of pitching needs to be. But again, you're doing 3 damage, and it starts with 2 cards. So like 2 cards, pitch, Sweeping Blow, generate an Ash, and then swing with all your dragons. If you have a few Aether Ashwings, that becomes pretty decent rate. But otherwise, a lot of times you're like holding these cards. You're taking like 8 damage to do 3 back and generate 2 Ash tokens. It's like, you don't want to fall too far behind where you can't pivot out once you actually have your board state built. So this is a good question, but I think that's why it has the 3 block on it. It kind of just fits all of the things you need. Again, the red's really important. You need these red cards to turn the Go Again on for Dromai. So if I had like 2 or 3 red Sweeping Blows, I'd be super happy. If I had 2 or 3 Skittering Sands red, I'd be extremely happy. If I had 2 or 3 Rake the Embers, I would have a hard time not playing Dromai right off the bat, regardless of big dragon situation. So there we go. I've got a rainbow Skittering here. We'll look at that. I had a bunch of blue Skittering, which is not where I want these blue cards. It's fine to have these transform cards. You do need some amount of them for sure. But I would take probably blue in a 3 block and a Sweeping Blow, so I can use those for utility when I only need the 1 pitch card in the turn, rather than in the 2 blocks. Ideally, right? If I could build my perfect pool. Then we have another in the same vein, which is Billowing Mirage. Billowing Mirage, very much similar to Sweeping Blow. It's on the same stat line. It's a 1-3-3, 1-2-3, 1-1-3. I only got 2 blues here, so that's not ideal. I would love to see these guys more in red and more of my kind of utility cards in blue and yellow. But when you attack with it, you can transform an Ash into an Aether Ashwing. So you can kind of imagine what the math looks like on this, where like, let's say you can pitch a blue, Sweeping Blow, Billowing Mirage, Chainlink 3 or higher. Now some of your Draconic cards like Breaking Point can become important. But then let's say you've created an Aether Ashwing from your Billowing Mirage. Well, let's say you like Sweeping Blow, Billowing, Swing Dragon. Those are pretty okay numbers considering you're building kind of a permanent board state at the same time. So these are kind of your take care of my general day-to-day stuff, And then Rake and Skittering are your kind of tempo-y, turn over the game kind of cards, along with your big dragons, of course. Then we have an interesting card called Dust Up. This one was a hard one for me to kind of wrap my head around. The weird thing about this card, the good thing about it is a 0 for 4. And we love 0 for 4s. A 0 for 3, I mean, that's phenomenal. That's, that's your Wounding Blow template right there. We love that. So it's basically Wounding Blow with a hit effect. If it hits, you create an Ash token and then transform into an Aether Ashwing. So it's a great hit effect in Dromai. The problem here is that a lot of the time, you're really, like, if you draw this mid to end game, I want a red Go Again that can turn on all of these Go Again dragon attacks. And Dust Up is the kind of card that you think is doing that, and then you might play it and be like, oh no, it doesn't have Go Again. That's where some of these dragons that gain action points can be interesting. Or like I had some turns where like I would play a red Go Again, like a Skittering Sands, swing a bunch of stuff, then I'd Chromai, gain an action point. Then I play like a Dust Up or two, where you can actually chain out this stuff at the end of the chain rather than at the beginning. So it's good. It's good as a 0 for 4 out of hand when you have to block with 3. It's a fine card for that. I think it can stay in Arsenal for a while and kind of recover you some board building tempo whenever you have to block down. And I also think it is a good, after all of your dragons attack, if you start with like a Skittering. This is a great no pitch hand, right? Skittering, swing with all your dragons, Dust Up at the end. Super, super solid. So got a yellow and a red of that. This is one that breakpoint at 4 red is really important. But also, there's only so many red cards you're going to get. So, like, where do you want it? Like, I probably would be okay with this on yellow and blue in the deck as a block 3. And then as, like, a really annoying, here's another 1 or 2 cost attack. And if you don't cover it up, it's going to be a lot worse for you next turn. So I think those are notably good. And again, the math here is, like, just so cool because it's not really overt. It's, like, 3 attacks and stuff. It's like, typically that's a little below rate. But let's talk about something that's great. This is a great question from Luke. Does she feel more like Prism Heralds overall? No, she does not. She's way scrappier. It's way grindier. Way more low to the ground. It's like a rogue deck. It's like Prism if Prism was a rogue instead of like an angel missile person. So good. I love the playstyle of Dromai. Love the playstyle of Dromai. So good. So Ember Moss Senpai is a notable card. Oh my gosh. If you see a good number of these, like this card is phenomenal. Just swinging back for 7 and 8 on these yellows and reds. Block 2, swing back for 7 or 8 is like a sealed special, right? The old sealed special is what we call that. And that can win games. Just strictly swinging 3 or 4 of these over the course of an entire game. So I'm a huge fan of this. If they pop it, you get an Ash token. It blocks 3. I mean, this card does about everything you want it to do. It's also really good as like a follow-up, right? So pitch a blue into like a Sweeping Blow or Billing Mirage or Rake the Embers, and then end with that big 2-cost 7 or 8 attack. It's so good. What's up, Gravecrawler? Yeah, we're here. We're chatting Fab. What's up? We're 200 people watching and listening right now. What's up, guys? Glad everybody's here. Then you've got Dunebreaker Senpai, which is basically a tiny version of Ember Moss. So like the cost goes down to 1. It's basically on template. A 1-3, a 1-4, and a 1-5. So I like this in yellow, and I really like this in yellow, to be honest. I think it's quite good in yellow and red. You can have some nice turns. It does have Go Again, which is extremely notable. So, you can get that Senpai, Dunebreaker Senpai into Ember Moss Senpai is a really good turn. Also, just pitching this for a red 5 Go Again, swing with all your dragons, and then end with a 2-cost. Very notable as well, like an Erase Face or these kinds of things. You can set up some really good chains. I just didn't see these. I didn't see enough of these. I would have liked more of these. And in particular, I think the yellow Ember Maw is super solid. That's a great breakpoint, 3 block, 2 for 7. I would have liked to see this in yellow and red for sure. That would have been my preference. Dust Ups in the blues and yellows I'd be okay with. And then we got a red Sand Cover. This card is really good. Card is just really good. Again, it's hard to know because you got to value Ash. You've got to find a way to value Ash correctly. And so destroying one for a 4 block oftentimes you're like, I don't know, if I have a lot of Ash, sometimes that's incredible. If I only have one Ash and I got to play an Invoke next turn, this is a dead card, right? But I was finding that the versatility of this card was just phenomenal. It gave me a great matchup into Iyslander. That Ward 4 is just Bugatti against arcane damage. Also, most of the big cards for Fai come in at 4 as well. A lot of times that's your break point. The 5 damage engulfing was always a problem, but a lot of those 4 damage attacks that come through that have those hit effects, you just cover it up with one card, and I think that's really notable. This is a really good card. Of course, in red is most notable. If I had yellows and blues, I would still bring them in against Iyslander for sure. I think I would go ahead and add the 1 red or the 2 red whenever. Wyatt here saying lost a game because I was stuck with 2 sand cover and no way to make Ash. That's tough. There are ways out of that. So like your Helios, you can activate that regardless of what's happening on the board. So like if you have 2 reds, you can save your Helios and just generate 2 Ash and do nothing with the effect, or like play it on your opponent's turn, at least prevent 1 damage. So you can use your equipment in interesting ways. Remember Quell too. If your opponent attacks you, you can activate Quell and pitch reds to generate Ash. So look out for ways where you can use red pitch on things that aren't your offensive turn. That can get you out of an Ash drought, if you will allow me the ridiculous metaphor. And then finally, Transmogrify. I have a love-hate relationship with this card. The end. No, like Transmogrify was really clutch in situations where it turned my like blue billowing and yellow sweeping blow into 7 strength attacks. That's good. But you're still 3 cards in for a 7 attack with a hit effect, which is okay. I love this if it's red. It turns on the dragons. It allows you to play little weenie attacks to do something awesome. Ryan correctly noting it allows you to make a Phoenix Flame into something. But again, like, we have to remember we're 3 cards into the turn to make a 7 damage no hit effect Phoenix Flame, or an 8 damage if it's a red. So you got to watch out. Like, it's easy to do bad math fancily. Guess I'll say that. I wish it 3 blocked. I really do. Of course, that's maybe asking too much. But red here, at least, you know, your reds are where I think you're going to have to look at your Dromai pool and say, do I have what it takes to have enough red go-agains to actually have threatening multiple dragon attacks every turn? I think you need probably, gosh, I would want like 7 or 8 at the minimum red go-again cards through my generics and my Dromai cards to make that happen. So you've got 3 invokes here, right? So there's 3, 4 on Rake, 5 on Skittering, 6 on Sweeping Blow, and I'm kind of done there. So I did feel the crush of that, and I was looking to my generics to help solve that problem. So let's look at the generics. Let's look at some notable generics. So here's a notable generic, Scar for a Scar. That's notable. Other things that are notable is like Burn Away gets really good in Dromai for the 0/4 go again. That's why I did include 1 Phoenix Flame in the deck. So like in Dromai, I included a Flame Call Awakening to go get that Phoenix Flame. That's helpful. So I only ran 1 in this deck, but I think it was warranted. The Burn Away for late game to like have a turn where I'm 0 for 4 and then swinging all my dragons. I did run Breaking Point in the deck because it's a 1/5/3. I think that kind of goes where you need to. I did not run Flameborn Retribution, only blocks for 2. A lot of times I would not have a Phoenix Flame in my graveyard, but it is a 1/3 go again. So I think this kind of sits on the maybe pile for Dromai. I think I maybe ended up actually running that, if I remember correctly. And then in Flame, 0/2, return a Phoenix Flame from your graveyard. It's a 0 for go again, so like these kind of come in for me if your Dromai pool isn't strong enough to power enough 0 cost go agains or 1 cost go again red cards. These are kind of on the bubble for me in Dromai. I think a lot of times I might ultimately bring them in. But also having a lot of 2-block reds that aren't really doing what you need the deck to do can be a little bit scary. But Scar for Scar is great in this deck. I mean, you're generally going to be losing early, so Scar becomes great. I mean, a turn for 0 for 4 go again plus swing with a few dragons is really, really strong. Okay, then what else might we... so that was in my generics, those are my only... Scar for Scar is my only red go again card in the generics. So if we just look at it, right, Phoenix Flame can also do this. It does nothing, so like a 0 attack, but it would allow your dragons to attack, so that's also worth looking at. So I think I went these for sure on my go again attacks. Breaking Point was just like generically good. I included that, and you will find yourself at Chain Link 4 or higher all the time if you start swinging with dragons. So it is worth having that in there. There's some good turns to be had with that card. So let's see, I was like 1, 2 kind of conditional, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I was about 10 red, and so I think I did cut these ultimately. 10's pretty solid, right? It's a 30-card deck. You're almost always going to see one of those in every hand that allows you to get those dragon swings going and get that go again online, which is very, very, very important. I also started to really favor 3 blocks in Dromai. The card pool naturally does it. It's like Billowing, Sweeping, Dust Up, Embermaw, all the Cinnapies all have 3 blocks. And you'll notice, as compared to Fai, there are a lot more 3 blocks in the Dromai pool. So you're kind of naturally thinking of blocking early. Another 3 block I brought in was the Critical Strike Red. That kind of fits the same template for me as Breaking Point. It's a fine card. It most of the time is blocking for 3 for me. There are weird situations where like you're just pitching a red, playing Critical Strike, making an ash. But I'm not sure that I even like that anymore. Like, I think just having this on like blue and yellow is probably better. It doesn't naturally have go again, so it's really an ending chain thing. It's not turning on the dragon go again as effectively as it otherwise could. So I'm kind of... Jury's still out on me in Critical Strike, but it blocks for 3. It's a respectable attack if they give you an opening. It can generate an ash off of a red pitch. I think it's right on the bubble. I think it's pretty solid. What's up, everybody? What's up, Joe? Billiam Bite. Good to see you out there, yeah? Okay. Next up, let's talk about these other generics, then we'll move on to Iyslander. So my generics were kind of garbagey. Notably good generics here are Sigil of Protection Red. You bring this in if you can't bring anything better in, for sure. Keep in mind, like, is a very conditional 1 for 4, so the math on that is not super favorable, but I would always bring these in against Iyslander. This is a great amount of protection. Because we can't rely on Arcane Barrier, we need to rely on these sigils. I also got this red Healing Balm. This card's pretty awkward, ultimately. It doesn't have go again. It's not instant. You got to play it as the only thing you do on a turn, and a lot of times you'll just gain 3 and pass. Again, I would run this against Iyslander because it is a way to block 3 arcane damage, if you will. Like, it kind of feels that way. But I don't think I would run this otherwise. It's just math, right? 0 for 3, it's fine. I would just run it against Iyslander. These are like kind of the look to sideboard these into Iyslander. I got the yellow sigil for that reason as well, and then a blue sigil. And I ran all of these. They replace some of my resource pool against Iyslander. These are all great. I would play pretty much all the sigils into Iyslander. Like, a lot of times she's playing a blue spell for 2 or 3 out of Arsenal, and even just Waning Moon doing 2 or 3, this covers all those cards. So run whatever mitigation you can against Iyslander is really good. Joe saying Oasis Respite is better against Iyslander. I mean, it is good. It's way better, but I think you run it all for sure. I only got the blue Oasis Respite, but this is a wonderful... Run all of these that you can find against Iyslander. In fact, you might just run the reds no matter what. Prevent 4, gain 1 most of the time. Like in a Dromai deck, you're going to prevent 4, gain 1. That's super good. And I think it has a place in a lot of decks. So even the yellow at 1 prevent 3 gain 1. It's like if you have other stuff to do on your turn, like if I was Iyslander maybe and I was going to be spending a lot more resources on, like had a 0-cost spell in Arsenal, I can pitch a blue, play no respite, maybe gain a life, prevent 4, and then still shoot the 0-cost spell from Arsenal and the Waning Moon for 3. That also becomes a really notable consideration for Iyslander. So super, super good. And yeah, that's right. Joe Mazzotti saying you can also gain Ash on an opponent's turn. The problem there, though, is like if you run the fundamental math, right, it's 2 cards for 5 if you do that. You generate the Ash, so like how do you evaluate the Ash token? It's important, I think, to understand that pitching red cards is still pretty much bad. So just be careful with how you're kind of evaluating your turns and don't lose track of kind of the fundies of the game. Because you can have a lot of Ash and then just get run over. So keep that in mind. Then I had a whole lot of blue 2 blocks, which I was not into. Blue Scar doesn't really do anything I want it to do in Dromai. It doesn't really do anything I want it to do ever. So this is like the blue card that comes in if your class pool and your 3 block blues, you don't have enough and you need more. Same thing with a blue Healing Bomb. This is a playable card in Iyslander. I actually like this in Iyslander quite a bit. You throw it in Arsenal. It's free on your opponent's turn. Gain 1. Turn on the Waning Moon. Shoot 3 arcane damage at your opponent. Not terrible, not great, but it's kind of a, if you got nothing else, there it is. Then we go to trade in. Blue trade in is really nothing that I'm looking for ever. But trade in's great. And if this is a red, so like red trade in a Dromai deck is really solid. You can block down 4, play trade in from Arsenal, gives it go again. You don't even have to discard a card or use its effect. It's just 0 for 3, go again, and then shoot all your dragons. So you can block out 12 and then dragon up. So that's a strong card in Dromai when it's in red. And then Brothers in Arms. Not bad in blue, to be honest. It's a 4 block when you absolutely need it, but you got to pitch a blue or pitch a red to do it. It's like, it's 2 cards to block 4 and generate an Ash and Dromai. But it's also a 2 for 4. Like, sometimes that's not terrible. Like, you pitch a blue, you do a 1-cost red thing, you attack with a bunch of dragons, and then you finish it off with a 2 for 4. Okay. Like, we don't hate it. But you really want this in red so you can pop Phantasm. I mean, that's really what we're here for. And then I had a yellow Sift, and Sift is a quite a strong card. I liked it. You got to be careful against Iyslander with this one. Iyslander has tricks here. Like Brain Freeze can really screw this card up. But God bless it, it's a 3 block. So I ran any blue and yellow Sifts that I found throughout the day. Just because it's resource base, it's 3 block, and it gives you a little bit of filtration. If they leave you with a hand that you need to use, you can sift it. And it's quite good. I liked this card quite a bit. Again, like in Dromai, it's playing your red card for the turn. We love it. It's card negative though. Keep that in mind. It's card negative. Okay, so there's the generics. So this is the Dromai pool. I feel like the dragons here were solid. These were good. I mean, Tumultai is a bomb. So like you can kind of play. I played usually second cycle Tumultai. That was my ideal. I think you're looking for as many red Rake and red Skittering Sands as you can find. The Sweeping Blows and Mirages in yellow and blue is okay because they do block 3 and they do provide you some value if you have to play them, if you're given a turn where that makes sense. Red Transmog is super strong. Obviously, I like that one most notably. I think I'd look for yellow and red Dunebreaker here. Having another red go again in this slot would be super solid. I'd take about any of these Embermoth Cinepais that I could find. I think this is a really solid attack. Even a blue at a 2 for 6 is okay. That leaves you some decent plays. It blocks 3. And if they do Phantasm it, you get a free Ash token. Love it. Dust Up, I would probably take in blue and yellow. I don't think it's as critical to have it in red. It is a hit effect at a 4 breakpoint in red, which again is great. But when you're digging for what is necessary in sealed being able to have your pitch cards in 3-block and also have some value if you're kind of stuck with them is notable. So I think I could take Dust Up in these lower colors. If it had Go Again, it would be incredible in red. But that's kind of where I'm sitting on it. And then, you know, all your red Go Agains, you know, this could have been better. And then your 2 blocks, these kind of Phoenix Flame, Inflame, and Flameborn Retribution. Those kind of pivot in and out of Dromai lists for me. I think if you're having to start running, if you're running these, you might be like, I don't know if this Dromai deck's very good. And then you can see how the generics can kind of support this. I actually had to roll into generics being more of a resource base for me, and I did have a pretty good anti-Iyslander 4 cards here, 5 cards with Oasis. So I felt really strong in Iyslander, but you gotta watch Fai can just really, you know, straight up run you over. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so then lastly, we'll pack up effectively all of this except the generics, but all the Draconics go, and we look at what Iyslander can bring to the table. So you will see like your Draconics, you'll see your Draconics, you'll evaluate whether or not you want to go Dromai or Fai if they're strong enough. 3 Invokes is really strong, so this was a good big dragon pool. I think you're probably going to be able to see some Dromai decks that are just as strong, just by having these red Go Again cards that are really important, right? So these Skittering Sands and Rake the Embers, if I had 3 or 4 of those reds, I would feel really strong even if I just had 1 big dragon. You know, if I had 2 big dragons and a decent amount of reds on where I wanted them, I would still probably go Dromai. I think the biggest threat that Dromai has is actually the 16 Kodachi strategy. So I would lean that direction depending on the reds that I get in the Dromai pool. And that's probably the first place that I'll be looking when I go to a sealed deck is like, where are my red Go Again cards? Where am I seeing those in the pool for Dromai? And then if there's enough of them and if they're in the right places, I would lean towards that deck because I also think it's going to be the deck that people probably spend the least amount of time actually building and playing against. I think everyone's going to get sick of seeing Fai over and over and over again, and Dromai is going to offer a different attack angle, and I think you can get really good at it. Is the thing. I think there will be really good and bad Dromai play out there, so you can bamboozle some people. White is correctly saying the 6 health dragons are so good. I think that is a good point. That undead dragon, I don't remember the name. It's right here. Is incredible. Necria. Necria is nutty. If you see Necria, I think you probably go Dromai. Just, you gotta play at the right time, right? Okay, lastly, let's look at Iyslander. I think my Iyslander pool is pretty garbage. Iyslander Waning Moon. So let's remember how this works. So on your turn and theirs, you can use Waning Moon as an instant. Most of the time what that looks like ideally is pitch a blue, play a 1-cost spell, and then deal 2 or 3 arcane. If the 1-cost spell or 0-cost spell is coming from your arsenal on their turn, it's 3 damage instead. Now it's any non-attack action too, so it doesn't have to be a spell necessarily, and we'll see some opportunities for that, like a blue Sift out of arsenal can work for Iyslander to get that Waning Moon damage. But also remember that like arcane damage on your spells is generally overcosted in the grand pie of how damage is done because it's harder to prevent. So don't make terrible trades, you know? It's not ideal to like take 8 damage to send back 4 arcane, right? Like that's not really a winning exchange ever. So trying to stack up enough damage, like even 2 cards for 6 on these Waning Moon turns is important. But I really think for me, if playing Iyslander, it became very important that I was finding enough spells that were able to also have secondary effects that slowed down my opponent. Like that's a big part of the strategy, creating frostbite and these kinds of things. So that's what I started kind of leaning into when I was evaluating Iyslander pools. Is not just, okay, I've got a 0 for 3 arcane damage attack. That's fine in red, right? I can block 9 and attack for 3, but if Fai and I keep doing that, I lose that game. Like that's not a winnable game for me. So the numbers are still here because like you have to remember, Fai isn't probably blocking much of this arcane damage. Might be playing cards like Sigil at the end of the chain, or be playing Oasis Respites. But you're really not getting cards out of hand most of the time, especially if you're presenting 2, 3, 4 arcane damage. So again, damage is damage. So if you're just taking a bunch of physical damage to then send back way less arcane damage, that's really not good. That's not worth doing. And that's where the disabling element of Iyslander becomes the way that you kind of even those scales up, right? So let's look at this. I think this is a pretty significant pairing, but not as significant as you might think. Gimmick Crossing is damage persistent on the dragons. It is. So throughout the turn is persistent. So if I swing for 3 into a dragon with Go Again, swing for 4, I can kill a 7 health dragon. But like, imagine how much damage I just didn't do to the opposing hero. Really, really good. So Glacial Horns and Conduit of Frostburn. Glacial Horns is the standout card here, for sure. Freeze a card in their arsenal or freeze an ally, and then it can't do anything for the next turn. I found that like people were using these two things together in ways that were probably not great. Where like you freeze a thing, and in a sealed game, like that buys you a turn of really solid tempo. And so if you then waste your conduit to destroy it from arsenal, a lot of times it's like you would rather have used this on Quell later to stop like the onslaught of 1 damage from Dromai's Dragons or Fai's Phoenix Flames. Fai's Phoenix Flames sounds like a convenience store or something. So that's really good. But Glacial by itself is super strong, especially against Dromai. Freezing the Arsenal card and the ally is like really good, right? You get a big dragon out there. This is one way to actually get a dragon off of the board. This is just the arsenal. So this is a good way to at least slow it down. But then there are cards also that destroy things that are frozen in Iyslander's pool. And a lot of times it's the only way you can get a big ally off the board. So your Glacial Horns is like critical. If I didn't have this, I don't know. I would start leaning away from Iyslander unless I had a ton of good spells. Like this is the card. I think it's really important. But I also say just like freezing stuff on its own is oftentimes enough in a limited format to get you on top of tempo and you know, kind of seal out the game. So like trying to force these two things to happen, a lot of times I found I was better off waiting and using this on Quell, or using a different card to destroy or to freeze a card and then using Conduit of Frostburn on that turn. So that's something to consider. Like Quell is really strong, so don't necessarily just be like, I'm gonna blow up your arsenal card, and then it's like, well, technically that's a little bit of wasted value because you already had frozen it. They weren't gonna get to use it, so they already can't use the card. Just go ahead and accept the freeze, go to the next turn, win that exchange, and then maybe use your conduit on Quell later. At least that's my take. Oh, Steven learning some lessons. Okay, so Glacial Horns, pay attention to that. She loves wearing those. Then we're going to look at kind of the way that her spells are built. So if we look at Red Aether Hail, first of all, Ice Wizard actions, we love them. We love Ice Wizard actions. We love blue Ice Wizard actions, but we love cards that confuse because they're ice, and we love cards that we can play out of Arsenal that have the ice keyword that give opponents frostbites. If you start doing your turn-by-turn math, a lot of the time, one resource can stop 3 to 4 damage in a normal Fai chain. A lot of times it can stop more than that. I think I can value it at about 3 damage, certainly against Fai. Sometimes against Dromai, it stops, especially if you do it late, it stops a lot of what they're trying to do, right? So they might hold 2 cards, pitch a red, Generating an Ash, play a red Go Again card. They have no resources floating. If you swing out with an ice card from Arsenal, they get a frostbite. They don't have cards in hand. They can't pitch to activate the attack ability to start their dragons. So we love ice cards in Iyslander. I know, what a surprise. But if you look at this Red Aether Hail, this effectively is a blue for 6 damage. So 2 cards for 6 damage. That's on rate. It blocks for 3. It's hard to prevent damage, so there's an inevitability to it. So Aether Hail is pretty solid in the red slot for sure. Pitch a blue, activate Aether Hail on your turn, activate Waning Moon. That's a total of 6 damage. We really like that. And it's an ice card that fuses. I think this is a really solid one. Really, really good one. Then we've got Red Dampen. You immediately become suspect of any 2-cost cards because they add an additional pitch to your Waning Moon. So like I can't play Dampen and then play Waning Moon without pitching 2 cards. And that brings the value way down. So Dampen here, 4 Arcane to any target, prevent the next X Arcane that would be dealt to you, where X is the damage dealt by Dampen. I would only bring this into the mirror. Only. I mean, that's otherwise it's just really expensive for what it's bringing to the table. You can make a case for like a deck that's trying to block a bunch and then do Unpreventable Arcane, but like if you're taking damage to send back 4 Arcane on your turn and then you can't use Waning Moon, you're not in a great spot there. That's not awesome. Got 2 red Aether Hails here, so I was in the really nice space there. Aether Dart, nice. Similarly on rate for Aether Hail. Block down, 0 for 3 on your turn, 3 Arcane damage, 1 card for 3. That is a pretty good value for Arcane damage. So I like those red Aether Darts as well. Not too keen on the blues. I mean, you send it from Arsenal. It doesn't generate a Frostbite. It does 1 Arcane damage. Like, why? Why do that? Then you got to pitch a card for the Waning Moon. It's like, not terribly important. Is that Muginshi on that? That's hilarious. How did it think I said Muginshi? But yeah, Dampen and CC, of course, could be quite good. Let me see what else. So we've got Aether Ice Vein. I think this card is excellent. This card is excellent. So let's look at Aether Ice Vein Red. We're looking at a blue pitch, play the red on your turn, 5 Arcane. They've got to pay 2 or lose a card. Incredible value. So you're getting a card out of hand. So this becomes essentially 1 card for 5. And then you fuse it with ice. And then you put that ice spell in your arsenal. And then you can wreck your opponent with that on the next turn. Ice Vein is significant. If I had like 2 or 3 red Aether Ice Veins, I'd be like, okay, well, this is the deck that I'm playing. I don't know if you could keep me off of Iyslander if I had that. I didn't. So that's a story. Let's see what else we pulled here on the reds. We've got a red Frosting. This is just a better version of Aether Dart, right? 3 damage to any target, 0 cost, 3 block, but this one has the ice keyword, so it's just strictly better in this deck. Red Frosting is super solid. You can fuse with it. You get your 3 Arcane for 0, comes out of hand. That's a perfectly on-rate card for Iyslander. Quite happy with that. Got a yellow Aether Dart. That's like the last thing I want to see. It doesn't pitch blue, and it doesn't do more than 3 damage. So like, I'm really just not happy to see that. Icebind is so good. Love this card as well. 0 cost, deal 3 Arcane, and then it deals. If it deals damage in here, you freeze a card in their arsenal until the start of the next turn. This card is really good. There's really just no way around it. If you imagine, you kind of do the turn-by-turn math, they have to waste a card in their turn, so you subtract out 3 value from them, let's say. So I spend 1 card plus the fusion that I can then later put in Arsenal or use to pitch to swing Waning Moon. This is just really good on rate. I just really am into this very much. So Icebind is an example of what I think Iyslander needs to be doing. These Aether Ice Veins and Icebinds are what you need to be doing, not just strictly arcane damage, because you can still get run over making bad exchanges in this kind of a deck. So I would signal to Icebind really heavily. I think that card is strong. The yellow is fine. It's still okay. And the blue again is fine. It's fine. If they have an Arsenal card and they don't start the turn with it, like Blue Icebind can be okay, but watch out. It's still just a card for 1 damage. So sometimes not awesome. 1 damage and a Frostbite would be good, but it does not have the ice type. So it really doesn't want to be there. These are really the red. Like you want your Aether Ice Veins and Icebinds in red, and then you want like your Ice Wizard stuff in blue. because that frostbite carries a lot of value, or so I think at least. Let's talk about a card I really dig too. Polar Cap is a really good card. Huge fan of that. It's a 2 for 2 in blue, but it's really a 2 for 4. If it was fused and it deals damage, you create a frostbite under an opposing hero's control. So it's kind of this is an awkward card in that it doesn't really fit into the mold of our deck. You got to pitch 2 cards if you want a Polar Cap and Waning Moon. It does have the ability to create a frostbite, which I think is notable in the format, but it's not really one that I want to play from Arsenal. It can screw your opponent out. You kind of get a free frostbite like normal. I'm not actually. I said I like this card a lot. I'm not sold on this card right now. I do know frostbites in the set are really important. But I'm not sure. These 2 costs really kind of have me nervous. But would I run it in blue? Yeah, probably. But you want your ice stuff in blue really more than anything, so that it has that dual purpose. But I'd probably, this is kind of on the cutting board here for me. I like these like Aether Dart, Frosting, Icebind. These like 1 card arcane damage is solid. I don't like the 2 pitches, because your Waning Moon is 2, so you've got to split the goalposts on that. Something to keep in mind. Okay, then let's look at Succumb to Winter. Give me another yellow Polar Cap out of there. It's like, I don't know, like that's kind of the worst of both worlds. I guess there's a pitch for the 2, but... All right, Succumb to Winter. Now, this is an interesting card. I got that in foil, and it looks beautiful. I just got 2 of these, and they're both rare. Again, it's an elemental wizard action, so it's not generating a frostbite on their turn. It does fuse ice, and if it was fused, targets a hero. You can destroy a frozen card in their arsenal. If it targets frozen ally, destroy that ally. I'd probably bring these in against ice or against Dromai specifically, with Conduit of Frostburn on the table, or with Glacial Horns on the table. I think you can have a really strong, obviously, Glacial Horns turn with this. Target a big dragon, bide your time, maybe pitch it down if you see the invokes go down on the pitch stack, and have an answer to something that is very, 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 very strong. It's also 5 arcane damage at red. So like pitch a blue, do 5 is acceptable. But freezing cards is not that normal in this. I didn't get any cards that like were really good at freezing. So like it just doesn't have a lot of synergy with at least what I was doing or able to do in this deck. But I think against Dromai, it's a good spot. Sometimes it's just like the only answer. If it was ice, hey, I'd be more into that. I'd be way more into that, Got this yellow Frosting, fine, play it if you have to. What I thought was really fascinating was this, this blue Frosting is kind of fine. Like a card for an arcane damage and a frostbite can actually do a lot of work here. So I actually like the blue Frosting here. Hate the blue Aether Dart, but it pitches and it blocks for 3, so that's fine. Arding Incarceration. I think this card is pretty strong. I was quite a fan of this. From Arsenal, it just generates 2 Frostbite tokens on your opponent. I think that's serviceable. You can use that. And the red just dumps 3 on them, which I don't know if that's strong enough, like for your turn to just do that, to do no damage or anything like that. It can definitely stop some decks in their tracks, but a lot of times too, you'll just pitch a blue to clear it and just, have a turn. So I'm really keen on the blue here. I like playing that blue from Arsenal and getting a pretty good amount of value. Two Frostbites can really screw up a turn, especially because you can react like mid-game and do it when it matters most. Brings us to Ice Bolt. These two cost cards are tough. 2 cost cards are really tough. You're dealing 3, okay. So you got 2 cards for 3 and a Frostbite. Any target is good, right? So this is one of your highest damage opportunities to kill, like a dragon, an ally, those kinds of things. Not getting the Waning Moon on top is really tough on this one. So if you look at, even compare it to like Blue Frosting, right? So if I do Blue Frosting and pitch for Waning Moon, I do 4 Arcane and 1 Frostbite. If I pitch for Ice Bolt, I do 3 Arcane and 1 Frostbite on your opponent's turn. So it's just strictly like worse in the same situation. So it's one to, to keep in mind. I don't know, like when you go into Constructed and you've got tunic counters and other ways of generating that one resource, that would be excellent. But I don't know. In this format, you can't be that picky because there's only so many spells you're going to draw. But like comparing it to like Blue Frosting or Blue Icebind, I would take those certainly, just given the Waning Moon over Ice Bolt. Then we come to Singe. Singe is your out here. Singe is a big deal. This is the only way you win the Dromai matchup, I think. Like, Dromai players eventually will learn that if I have enough Oasis Respite, Sigil Protection, Healing Balm, if I've got my Aether Ashwings out and I pack a bunch of blues, there's nothing that Iyslander can do to prevent that. So Singe is your answer. If you have a deck that does not have Singe, yeah, you really probably shouldn't play it. Like, I just don't know. I think this is going to become a really important card. You have a few Singes. I think it looks really good in your Dromai matchup, but otherwise, I don't think that's very favorable for you. Yeah, I don't think that's a very big thing. I see you talking about arting incarceration in the chat. The problem is, like, you really just have to kind of do the math on that, yeah? I think if you block 9, hold the red, dump 3, then you basically have a turn of 9 value, and then they have to dig out of your 3 Frostbites. Like, if their response is pitch a blue to play a 0 cost, and then pitch a blue and continue their turn, it maybe evens out. But you I mean, it's going to be it's not just immediately obvious that that's awesome. Because even if like you block 9, do nothing, then they do nothing, you've both done nothing. It depends on who had tempo at the time whenever those plays were happening. So it does potentially give you the ability to come into a 4-card hand. But it can also, like, that's a problem with Frostbites that we just don't know, right? Like, my Fai deck was running like 8 to 9 blues. So there was times where I got hit by red incarceration, and like my opponent took damage, played the incarceration, arsenaled a card, and then I pitched a blue, did a 0 cost, pitched a blue, did my normal turn. And they took so much damage and opportunity away from themselves to effectively draw a blue card out of my hand. Which, if they're all reds, yeah, you got them, But sometimes they're not, and it only blocks for 2. So it's like, I do love the blues, though. I think the blue incarceration is quite good. So yeah, Singe, I think you need at least 1 or 2 of these against Dromai to have a good shot at it. Because, like, they get the dragons out. It's crazy. Crazy. Blue Brain Freeze. This is a sleeper hit for me. I love this card. I love this card in reaction to a lot of things. I like it in reaction to Sift. Man, that's good. If they have a 0 cost there, that's really good. I like it starting with, like the first thing you can do to Fai. I like it if there's a moment of interaction between the Phoenix Flame they just got and them doing anything else, which a lot of times there's not, right? So they'll activate the instant, you have to let it resolve, and then the next thing they'll do is announce and play. So you don't have a chance to brain freeze that. But even just as a blue 3 block for 0, is pretty cool, right? You can play it early in the turn. You can block with a card that you would then fuse with later in the turn. A lot of times it's taking away, and you got to think about Fai, right? A lot of the time that second 0 cost go again card is like their, what is it? That Cinder Brand and Cinder Flame, and It's the brand with Cinder Claw as an example, but there's really is Lava Vein Loyalty. A lot of times you hit that Lava Vein Loyalty from their second chain is what they're playing for, and then it just goes out, and then it's like, oh, I can't play that, which means I can't play my third chain link, which means I can't get my Phoenix Flame. So there's a lot of really good opportunities for Brain Freeze. I was actually pretty into it. Brain Freeze was quite good. I was surprised. I think this is really strong too, maybe against Dromai. You just have to imagine, like, where are my opportunities to play before they play their zero cost attack? Like, a lot of times Dromai is going to lead with a zero cost go again card, like your Skittering Sands. And then it's like, okay, well, I can't play this and do anything with it. So, you know, this is one to keep on the short list as a blue that blocks for 3 and it costs 0. So you get me into I don't hate it territory. Even if you're just playing it to reveal your opponent's hand, sometimes that can save you. I mean, the value on it is bad, but sometimes it can save you, and it also turns on your Waning Moon. So like you're 2 cards in for 3 arcane damage and potentially putting a card on the top of their deck. Don't hate that. Don't hate that at all. And then finally we've got a wizard action here. Read the Ripples. In mine. That's a weird card. You know, the weird thing about this card is it doesn't have Go Again. I was surprised it didn't have Go Again. I think that was a bamboozler for me. I think I made a mistake once, thinking surely this kind of an effect does have Go Again. All the Guardian Auras have Go Again, right? Important time to remember. We're sponsored by Nalgene Water Bottles made in the USA. 100% HPC for food plastic. Hydro Brain, Hydro Life. A water bottle today, or just take a drink. Water, it's nature's medicine. I don't know how I feel about Read the Ripples. I don't think I feel a lot about it. I mean, a blue out of Arsenal for Iyslander, okay. It's kind of cool. Turns the Waning Moon on and gets you a card that you might actually want to put into your arsenal. That's acceptable. Yeah, it blocks for 2 though, right? Let's not forget. Blocks for 2. The blue coming out of Arsenal, opt 1, pitch a card, Waning Moon for 3, you're 2 cards in for an opt 1 draw at the end. So it's like, it is card neutral, which is nice. You probably play this. You especially play this in... Maybe you do play a lot of this, actually. I'm just thinking, like, if I block down with Iyslander, play Read the Ripples, opt a few, get an Arsenal card of my choosing, like a blue spell, put it in. That's an okay exchange. I think that's fine. Yeah, pretty solid. If it had Go Again, I would be way more hip to it. But unfortunately, it does not. And like Iyslander is weird because you play the blue on your opponent's turn, it goes to their end phase, and it comes all the way back to you, and then it goes to your end phase, and then you draw the card. So yeah, it's interesting. Wish it blocked for 3 though. Call for the ages. And then finally, you know what? In Iyslander, I think I still run these 1 for 5 and 1 for 4 critical strikes. You can kill a dragon with that. You don't like it, but you can do it. I'm not convinced either way. There's just so little Go Again on her card pool. Like, these kind of become awkward. But in like blue, I would play these blue critical strikes for sure, like a blue 3 block. If I didn't have others, I would. It's just so important that she has those blue pitches, and like you're gonna have to block a lot because you're not the fastest deck. So then we've also got Red Scar. I think I play this in every deck strictly. It's a 0 for 4 with Go Again. Just play it. Oasis, great. You know, blue Sigil in Iyslander is worth a mention because you can pitch a blue Sigil ward 2 and then 3 arcane damage. So you're kind of like you're on 2 cards for 5 at that point, and that ward 2 can have a lot of impact. So I do like the blue Sigil as a shout in Iyslander. That's not terrible. I kind of like all the Sigils too because like it's the same thing, right? You pitch a blue, you red Sigil on your turn, and then you swing Moon for 2. So like it's 2 cards for 6, assuming that your ward pays off in full, which would be sick. Not bad at all. Healing Balm red, I don't know. Maybe against another Iyslander is fine. Healing Balm pitch, swing Waning Moon for 2. That's a 5 value exchange. It's okay. These are the kind of things, like the second tier of things you have to do if you have to do them. I like Oasis Respite. Like, it's always on for Iyslander. She starts with less health. So like on first turn, it becomes quite good. Particularly the yellow and red. Especially because you can ideally play a 0 cost from Arsenal and then also play 2 on the Waning Moon. So there's ways to stack these up that can get really, really solid. And then Sift, blue Sift is fine in Iyslander. There are some games where like I just need 3 arcane damage to finish this. And so having blue non-attacks is solid, especially they block 3. Definitely don't hate that. So I think that's it. I think that's the sealed pool. So I didn't think this was a particularly strong Iyslander pool. So I didn't play this in the official sealed event. And I don't think I would change my mind on that looking at it now. I would be looking at Icebind and Frosting in blue. Frosting in blue particularly. Icebind in red is pretty solid. I'd look for some blue Arctic Incarcerations. A few more Singes would have pulled me in this direction. I think the red Aether Hail is fine. That's a 6 damage exchange. I think those are good cards in this deck. Waning for 2, 4 arcane from Aether Hail. I think the Ice Vein is really what you're looking at here. If I had more like Aether Ice Veins, I would feel really good about this pool for Iyslander. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's what I'm learning. So you guys have any questions about sealed? I'm actually I'll give a brief recap of the Team Blitz event and then get on out of here. But to reiterate, this set is so good. I think you'll 100% feel the same way when you play it. It's kind of a shame that there's been so much box opening and limited play before we all have access to the product. I don't know. I feel like the timeline of that should be a little different. But it's really good. I think it's in the running for best Flesh and Blood set that's ever happened. I say that totally honestly. Not trying to, move things in any direction, this direction or that direction. Of course, I can never prove that to you, but I really do think it's high on the list of I think it's definitely the best limited set. It may be the best set overall. Or I can say best sealed set for sure. I didn't draft enough to really have a good opinion of that for Tales or Welcome to Wraith or Arcane. Really clever interactions. Really incredible, just little minor decision points. Great action on the table. Everything feels like it actually has meaning. And it feels like a lot of skill is involved. It feels like the skill, it kind of is rising to the top on both construction and gameplay. So I would very much suggest if you're not going to a pre-release or if you don't have in-person stuff around, try to find a road to nationals or something nearby and go check it out because it's so good. And just the format is fun. Like the cards, I'm sure for CC, I haven't even thought about this set for CC or Blitz, but the cards for Sealed it's just an awesome format. It's a game all itself. And I think anytime your limited format is like a really solid game without any consideration for constructed decks, you're in a really good place because that will carry a set no matter what. If you need the cards or not, it really doesn't matter if you can pay your $20 and have an incredible experience with Flesh and Blood that doesn't rely on deck building at all. So that's a big consideration. Sensible Radio, thanks for showing. Great, love it. Glad to have you here. Ryan saying the set's so good. I agree. Did you feel the same way, Ryan, when you were in Vegas? Did you feel like it was notable, like a standout set? Sam Kernow saying, I feel like I've learned a lot and I'm more ready for a pre-release. Great. Happy to help there. We would be jamming more sealed games when Zach gets back in action. Ryan is playing Iyslander CC in our league tonight. That's worth noting. So we do have a Flesh and Blood monthly league that is fantastic. You gather on a Tuesday night. You get prize support from the Armory kits if you play 3 out of your 4 matches every month. And it's just a great place to be. It's 8 o'clock Central on Tuesday nights in our Discord server. You sign up for that on our website. and it acts like a subscription, so you can sign up at any point, and then it will automatically get charged a few weeks before the league starts. You'll play your 4 matches, we'll send out all the prize support, and you just keep doing that over and over again. Wonderful, wonderful folks in that. Gerda saying, so pumped for pre-release. Yeah, lovely. Donald Kelly, as someone who mainly plays at home with the pre-made blitz decks, are there any obvious this will be a problem at 20 starting life? Donald, I didn't see any of that. I think this is just so good. There's nothing like overtly crazy. There's no like, pull the Winter's Whale. I will say, like, if you pull like the Tiger Stripe equipment for Ninja, you might have an easier time. But even there, it's not that crazy. Because you have a lot of prevention effects that obviously don't work with the old Tiger Stripe Shuko or whatever. But also, if you're running those 2 damage attacks, like those are generally in your yellow and blue zone, so they're automatically not that great. I feel like that's probably a Benji card. I've never played or seen Benji in my life, but it certainly feels like it's got the magic 2 attack that Benji's looking for. Clutch City saying, love the sealed for this set. It rivals Welcome to Wraith. Love it. Wade, good to see you, Wade, in the chat. I definitely felt like it was a great set to open for sealed formats. Ryan again saying it was standout for me. I was shocked how even the games were. I thought Iyslander would get run over. James Armstrong, very cool, said, judge the Madrid event and players all had an amazing time. John the Bard, stoked to get my box from TC. Well, thank you, John the Bard. It's worth mentioning. We do have a subscription program in place for Flesh and Blood. We've been doing this for like 10 years now for various games. Basics are if you just want to automatically get booster boxes or chapter packs or releases, whatever it is for the games that you play, you can sign up, and then we will sign up's free, no contracts, no nothing. It's basically like a really fancy pre-order, but you don't pay any money up front. That's kind of the pitch. So $0, you say it is, hey, I want these products when they release. And we're like, okay. And then we charge you a couple of weeks before something comes out, and then we send it to you. It's that simple. And the booster boxes for Flesh and Blood have an exclusive promo, and it's a promo sand cover for Uprising. Everyone's already missed Uprising if you're not on the sub already. But if you sign up right now, you'll be in line to get the promo and any number of booster boxes from the next set. Let's see. Mason saying, really hoping my pool lets me play Iyslander. I fell in love after one Blitz game even without the new cards. I've been so stoked for support. Yeah, it's going to be super fun. But Mason, if you're a great sealed player, you can't even think that way. You got to say, I just gotta play whatever the cards give me, right? Dominique Balasone, when are you shipping the subscription Uprising boxes? Thanks for the sealed demo. Yeah, of course. So we usually ship, we basically have to ride the line between boxes ever possibly arriving too early, which would be a breach of contract with Legend Story, and boxes arriving as close to release day as possible. So we usually kind of space that out based on shipping estimates. We'll ship those boxes on Wednesday or Thursday of the week of release. And our intent is always to get them there on release day or maybe like 1 or 2 days after. I think the latest, like the majority of people get them on Friday or Saturday. There are some folks, depending on where you live, that will get them on Monday. And then sometimes Tuesday or Wednesday if the Postal Service is kind of freaking out. But I can say with like complete transparency and belief that I don't think there's any other online retailer that would get them to you any sooner. I know the vast majority, if not the entirety of online retail, the big guys at least, are going to start processing those orders on the release day. So that's my take on that. Clutch City here, correct. Dromai surprised me how non-clunky she was in sealed. Hopefully after today, a lot more people feel confident playing her. And then saying Iyslander was really strong. Yeah, Waning Moon can do some work. And Joe here corroborating that. In my experience, I always received subscription boxes on or after the release day. And then Joe, hey, it's great to talk to you. It's great to talk to everybody that saw us in Vegas, saying it was great talking to you and Zach, especially about X-Wing this weekend. It was a good time at the release event. Yeah, we had a great time. It was awesome. Like, it was just a really great time. I got to tell you, in-person gaming events, so it's just great. I love being around. Everybody from the TC Discord was around, and we all got to meet each other officially, and spend time together. Had a great dinner together. just check in with each other throughout the weekend and catch up with old friends and start to really form those relationships, which is really what this is all about, right? It's like all this like beautifully intellectual facade in front of like human relationship, which is nice because you kind of get both, right? You get nurtured in both ways, both mentally and kind of spiritually with those relationships. So it's absolutely worth doing. And I will be at every world premiere I can be at because World Premiere Sealed is kind of like peak games for me. And on that note, let's talk about Team Blitz real quick. Zach might have a different take on this, probably not. But Zach and myself, or Zach and me, I guess is appropriate grammar, and then Matt Coles, who's an old buddy of ours from the Star Wars LCG days. He beat Zach in the finals in that game, and that's kind of how that relationship started. Great player from I think it's from the Ohio area, if I'm not mistaken. But we went in, we did a bunch of like kind of grinding. We did Kasai, Reinhardt, and Briar just because we just didn't want to play Oldhim. I mean, to be honest with you, we just didn't want to play Oldhim. And we should have probably in the grand scheme of things. But one thing that I was really struck by was when we were figuring out those pairings, how the lack of sideboard and Blitz does give you more of a I hope I get XYZ matchup feeling than it does in CC. Now, there are times in CC where I definitely don't want to see X, Y, and Z, of course. Classic Constructed, of course. But man, in Blitz, like, I went into that format saying, all right, I'm going to play Kasai, and I want to get paired into Rhinar. I'm okay into Oldhim depending on the build, and it's kind of hard to suss that out, but I've got enough tools in the deck that I can stack up, like Oath, Gallantry, Big Blood on Her Hands turn, Minerva, etc. So there's a conceivable path to victory in that matchup. Not that it's easy, but it's conceivable. And then basically anything else, like in any of the basic heroes, kind of the random stuff that you run into, I definitely wanted to see that. We wanted our Briar player, Zach, to see the Kanos, and ideally the Oldhims, because he had the double Command and Conquer, double Exude, and could put some hurt on it. It was still maybe 50-50, but had a decent enough time. And then Reiner was kind of there as the I can just win games. And so like sometimes I will randomly win games. And that's great. We love that. So Reiner against most anything. So it's kind of like Reiner and Briar against Kano is what we wanted. We all felt like we had an okay but not great matchup into Oldhim, which is probably like flashing lights for maybe this is the wrong team. And then, the rest of it we could kind of handle. Play it as it comes. Kasai wasn't a huge issue. Like Rhinar can sometimes get that game done, although it's difficult. Briar can get that game done if the aggro hands present themselves early enough. And so like I just hit Prism, which was funny. I won, but it was like, oh no, like this is not the matchup Kasai was looking for at all. And then it's like 2 Kanos, which is bad. Like Kasai and a Kano is like it's like a draw, hold your breath, slap down cards, hope they die before you do kind of thing. There's really no like intellectual way to play that matchup because they just have more time. Kasai wants to be kind of this grindier, longer game hero, and like the longer you give a Kano player, if you give them 2 turns, like they're probably just gonna kill you. There's not a lot that you can do about it. That's just the nature of Kano at 20 health. So I hit 2 Kanos and I was close on one, but it's just a bad matchup. So I lost both of those. Didn't hit any Rhinars. Hit 1 Oldhim, beat 1, lost to 1. And that was kind of the story of the day. Prism, 2 Oldhims, 2 Kanos. And then there was one other thing that I won against. It may have been, I can't remember what it was. That's weird. Kind of put it out of my head. But we ended up going 3-3 as a team, which was honestly disappointing. I think it's important to like recognize and appreciate like, it's disappointing, to have that kind of a finish because we did spend a decent chunk of time like testing Blitz and thinking about these matchups and thinking about these seed pairings. And there's a lot of effort that goes into that. And I expected to do better than 3-3. And by the time we went 3-3, we were like, all right, we're over this. Like, we're over Blitz. We're over these matchups being the wrong side. Like, our Reiner player got paired up against like 4 Reinars. So if I had just been in the AC, like all things being equal, butterfly effect being removed, I would have had a much better day, and he would have been against the Kanos, so that would have been a better day. So it kind of was interesting. It felt like we were stacking a lot of variance up. Like, Blitz already has a decent amount of variance in the opening hands, the first few turns, and the matchups themselves. And then we added another layer of variance there where, depending on what seat you were kind of randomly in, there was a lot of thinking about it, but it was almost an impossible to solve problem. You would get a secondary element of variance of, did you get the one of 3 matchups that you wanted, which you kind of have that in a normal like Blitz tournament, but also Blitz a lot of times will be like 70% Ultim, 80% Ultim. So you can bring a deck into that format having a pretty good shot at only seeing Ultim. In this one, it was 33% chance to see the best deck, and then 33% chance to see basically anything else. So it just kind of constantly kept being the wrong bounce of the ball for us over the course of that day. And it was kind of that heartbreaking win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1, win 1. Okay, maybe we can go 5-2 and sneak in, lose 1, and then it's like, okay, we're out. So yeah, so it's disappointing, but I think I would do it again. I would still play Team Blitz again. I would play any team format. Team format is fantastic. I think the testing becomes more interesting and more fun. The actual day becomes way more fun to have a group that you're there with. And I was a huge fan of just the team event in general, but still not terribly hot on competitive Blitz, even though it does feel like there's more viable heroes to play in Blitz than there are in Constructed. Which is not necessarily saying anything great about Blitz, but maybe something about Constructed. But seeing Starvo roll out and the other one rolling out, isn't there somebody else rolling out soon? Or has already rolled out? Chain, yeah. Seeing Starvo and Chain roll out is like green fields for Constructed. I feel really good about that. So yeah, I would say I see some of these comments in the chat. I think that's right. Yeah, who you play against is random. So like, we chose A, B, and C going in, and then the C's get paired, the B's get paired, the A's get paired. If there was an element of choosing the matchup, maybe rolling off and choosing this or that, that might make it more interesting ultimately. And then Autumn's Equinox saying, gotta run Commoner for Blitz. Honestly, I would be really into that. I think Commoner Blitz would be really sick if that was just the Commoner format. So yeah, so we try harder next time. We learn from mistakes, and I think you had to have an Ultim, and it's kind of crazy because even if you're playing into Ultim, even if you know that's what's there and that's what you have to beat, there was no clear, like, this is the hero that does it, Like, things still had to swing your way some. You didn't know if you're getting aggro, mid-range, or control. So it was hard to play efficiently for the first few turns, and a lot of times the first few turns of Blitz are just really important. So I hope everybody else had a better time, but hey, you know what? Brendan didn't make it to day 2. Tarek didn't make it to day 2. Tarek, Rob, these guys. So I'm at least as good as them. Let's just say that. I think I'm better than Brendan at this point. Who was great to hang out with, by the way. Brendan, if you're watching. That was a wonderful weekend. We had a great time. And there's been all sorts of hilarious things happening on Twitter with various pictures that have been taken. Brendan looking at a salad, and me looking great, of course. So you can go to Twitter and check that out. Any more questions? I'm gonna get out of here. I got room for a couple more questions, then we're gonna bounce here. And it's just been a pleasure to hang out with everybody. We got totally bamboozled this morning. Zach is like, hey, tested positive for COVID, so wanted to come in here and at least do the recap of Uprising. I know there's so much excitement about this set that it would be really just a bummer to not cover it, not talk about Uprising. It's so exciting. And to be able to actually sit down and start cracking these 6 packs and just building sealed pools is something that I literally just cannot wait to do. I would do it right now if I had a chance. So we will be doing that throughout the next few weeks of Flesh and Blood. I don't know what the stream's going to look like this week. Going to figure that out whenever I get out of here with all of you. And, we may just cancel it this week and see where Zach is next week, and give me a chance to work on some other projects and get caught up on some work. So I think that's it. I guess the last question here, James, how do you feel about the devs winning Australia? I didn't know that. Did that happen? I didn't know the devs could play in competitive events. I will say, like, watching the devs play the little dev showdown, I wouldn't be that scared of them. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like, oh, these guys are so good. You know? Anyway. A lot of people that making the cards aren't necessarily the best. In fact, I played against 3 developers in my life. All 3 of them, bad at the game. Bad at the game, somehow. Isn't that weird? It's like, you designed this. How are you bad at it? Well, it's like, aren't you doing the fundamentals? I am. Just bad at it. Some people create and some people play, I guess. Alrighty, friends. I'm going to get on out of here. Well, it's been a pleasure. Cheers to everybody. I'll see you next time. Stay in touch on social and Discord, and we'll let you know about the stream. Take care.